and then we just go from there and we talk about whatever we want. Although there is another. Sometimes I talk about power, how you handle power struggles, and there's another. Sometimes I talk about power, how you handle power.
I like that.
Let's see. I think I'm live now, and everything's working right. And let's see if you. I'm just going to do a quick test here.
Okay.
Let's see if you. I'm just going to do a quick test here.
Okay.
Yep. All right, you're coming through. All right, you ready? And unless
I'm ready, yes.
And we'll set a timer for, because I have to make sure we do stop. Because I have to drive somewhere. I need to be there by 11, 9:30. Yeah, so we should really stop at 9:15 at the latest.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to just set a little timer that says that. Maybe 9:10, 9:10, in case we get going.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we are live. Hello out there. This is Matt Reddy, host of the Mindful Activist webcast, and the founder of the Global Consensus Project, developer of the Hive1.net platform, and author of the book Revolutionary Mindfulness, and elected politician in Jefferson County, Washington State. And this is our 16th episode, and I am joined today by an amazing young woman named Carrie Haw, who I have known my entire life because she is my cousin. And let me see, if I was going to describe you, Carrie, to the world, gosh, I would just say you're an amazing, intelligent, funny person. That's what I would.
Boss man.
Yeah. You're welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be a part of your 16th episode because 16 is my favorite number, so we're off to a good start. Nice.
All right. And we're doing this audio only because that takes some of the pressure off of it lets us focus on the conversation rather than thinking about what we.
Yes, as opposed to my radiance.
Yeah. So this is the first one that I've done like sitting at a computer that was audio only. So it's a little weird for me, but I like it. And I can't decide what I should show on the screen for Facebook Live. Right now I'm showing just the Hive one screen, but I could like take notes while we talk, and that would show up on the screen. That would be kind of funny.
Oh, that'd be kind of cool. It's very technical.
Might be distracting for me. Let's see. Well, how would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, as Matt has said, I am his cousin. How would I introduce myself? I'm a person who is a full-time graduate student and working in a school as a counselor for children. I also am an actor and someone who loves living in Mexico. I've lived in Mexico and Spain, and I love speaking Spanish and traveling. So I guess.
So did you say you were a teacher and an actor? Is that what you?
I have been a teacher in the past of ESL and theater, but I am currently getting my master's degree in psychology and counseling for children.
And you did say you're an actor, right?
Yes. I am.
And what's the last thing you acted in?
Other than daily life, no, I'm just kidding. So when I first got back, I've been back in New York for 2 years. I was living in Mexico and I was doing lots of theater there. But the first thing, or rather the last thing, because full-time graduate school does not lend itself to doing a lot of side projects. Mm-hmm. So the last piece of theater that I performed in was this thing called Rightopia Lab. It's here in New York City. And basically it's plays written by children. and then adults perform in them. So I got to be in 2 little vignettes that children wrote, which was really fun.
Very nice, very nice. I've never actually, I don't think I've ever seen you perform.
No, and it's interesting that you should bring up this topic, Matthew.
Because you were just thinking about how much you're upset with your relatives for not seeing your performances?
No. I had a chance in my youth to be on film and to show my acting chops, but it was denied because of possibly gender issues in our family.
Really? That is,
yes,
that is
my
weird.
cousins and brothers were in something called the Mad Bombers, and they created stories, and every Christmas in summer they would film these epic, bring their scripts to life on camera, and I was never allowed to participate.
Wow, that sounds like your cousins were really creative.
Well, that's one way to spin it. Yes, they were.
and
yes, they were very creative.
And so you're saying your skills weren't up to par at that time for them to let you into the show?
Well, I believe that's how you manipulated this conversation. But perhaps I was observing how not to be an actor. Forward into life and acquired, got an undergraduate degree in theater and then went on from there.
Oh, geez. Well, so you brought up the Mad Bombers. All right. So, there are some interesting things to talk about that. So, well, for the audience, the Mad Bombers was it was like the A Team. It was this, right? It was created by myself and Carrie's brother Michael and my brother Timothy, and we created these 3 characters that we all played, and we wrote. It started with just writing stories about these guys. We called them Mad Bombers, which I don't know why we were called them the Mad Bombers, because we never bombed anything.
I know that's true.
But it was basically like the A Team, and our nemesis was the Red Baron and Bigfoot. And eventually it evolved into, once we had a VHS camera, we started making videos. And Carrie here, she begged us to be in the videos, but no, that's not quite what happened.
I simply was not allowed. In fact, I begged so much that they said I was harassing them, and then that changed into calling me Harasi. So I did actually have a name and a mention on occasion in the Mad Bombers as Harasi.
Yes, that was, you're known as, and you're still called Harasi to this day, aren't you?
I am. And you know what? I have to say I like it. It's
kind of a cool name. I don't call you it, but I do hear you called it.
Comes up like if I were sitting next to you right now and I called your cell phone, it would be like Harasi calling.
No, it would not. So yeah, and it is true. We were young boys and not nice to sisters and female cousins all that much, and we didn't really let any girls into the show, other than as maybe reference to like some jokes.
Yes, exactly. I believe that is exactly correct.
Yeah, but and so I guess I'll just formally apologize for not letting you into the show. Although I'm sure I campaigned to get you into the show, and it was other people that blocked you.
Potentially, but look at where we're making up for lost time, because now you're having me on your show now.
Yeah, and Michael and Tim have never been on the show, so
there you go.
Yeah. Cool. Let's see. Well, let's go to the question I have to ask everyone, and then we'll see where we go. So, Carrie, do you consider yourself an activist?
An activist, like a political activist.
Well, whatever you think the word activist means, do you consider yourself that?
Yes and no, I guess would be my answer. I consider myself, especially with the current election that came up, people talked a lot, especially people who were very angry by the outcome, spoke a lot about things and like what to do and what is activism and how can we speak up and be advocates. But I think my activism comes in a different manner, maybe not like what you would think. Like I'm not out with a picket sign, but I did go to the March on Washington. So in some ways I do consider myself active, but I think that my activism comes in my work, which is working with young children to help create tolerance and acceptance and safe spaces and creating dialogue and giving children and marginalized groups like a voice, you know, through my counseling work and also through theater. I go to Mexico in the summers and I work with children who are in poverty and children with disabilities. And it's really about like bridging things instead of building walls. So I guess in that way, I'm an activist, like working with children to try to, you know, it's harder to change adults' perceptions, especially if they've been conditioned or, you know, we all have biases, but I think working with children and helping them learn tolerance and acceptance and self-compassion is my activism.
Yeah. Well, it's making a big impact on the world, on their world.
Yeah, hopefully.
Sure. Cool. But you went to the Women's March in DC?
I did.
Yeah, and any highlights from that you want to share?
I mean, I think just the sheer volume of people like around the world that showed up for it was pretty amazing. So it, you know, it was empowering. It was just to see that amount of people to know that like, okay, this crazy thing happened and how do we deal with it? And, you know, not everybody's on the same page and not everybody thinks the same way. But yeah, there were some crazy moments. Like the next day, my friend and I were walking down one of those main avenues, I don't know, and there's like a Trump hotel. And there are these people in front of the Trump hotel, like holding up, they had taken a Women's March sign that had been left on the ground, and they ripped the WO off of it, so it just said men, and they were smiling holding a men poster in front of Trump Tower with like Trump baseball caps on. My friend and I, we just kind of looked at them. We didn't even say anything. I'm not an instigator like that. And this woman just looked at me, and she's a woman, and she's like, that's right, I'm a woman and I love Donald Trump. And she's like, and I'm a Mexican and I love Donald Trump. And I was just like, what is going on with this person? But yeah, but I mean, overall being there, but it's also one of those things where it's like, well, wow, look at this turnout, but now what? Like what happens after the protest? You know, what happens after?
Yeah, I think it's exciting to see this uprising of women and female power. I am sort of curious, you know, how it's going to be channeled, what actual tactics will be found or tried.
Right. Or like, you know, what, I guess the other thing too was I had someone say, they were like, well, what is this march even about? Like, what is the specific issues? And I think that that's also a good question, because it's like, well, you know, some people were like, oh, the women march because they're still making less money than men, or, you know, it's about equality and then discrimination, and there's all these things. But I think maybe that was, I guess from outsiders' perspective, they were like, well, what exactly is this march about? And then to carry that over, it's like, well, what are we fighting for, and how can we achieve that in everyday life?
Yeah. So what was it about for you?
Well, getting back to the Mad Bombers and exclusion. No, I'm just kidding.
You can talk about whatever you want to talk about.
No. It's okay. I mean, I think for me it was about...
It goes back to the Mad Bomber. Donald Trump was a Mad Bomber. Basically,
Donald Trump as a child was someone who excluded females from his VHS, except for his daughter. No, I'm just kidding. So I think, yeah, I guess that's a complicated question. And I asked myself that, like, when I was going there, because at first I was like, oh, I don't want to go. I don't want to be in like these throngs of people. And what if something were to happen? And, but I guess for me, like going there was about just taking a stand against this person that's in office that is allowed to like be completely misogynistic. It was also about, I mean, for me, the fact that he won. Look, I know a lot of people didn't like Hillary, but I just think that, you know, people talk a lot about, oh, well, it was like a racist issue why like Donald Trump won, because like, but a lot of states that voted for Donald Trump also voted for Obama, but none of them would vote for a woman. So I think there's, you know, there's layers to this. It's not just race or xenophobia. It's also misogyny.
Yeah.
So I think that, I guess I marched for that. I marched for, because I've been in the position of, you know, making less than a guy in my same company with the same title as me. You know, and I guess it's just about being heard and trying to do something. I guess we were also devastated after the election. We're like, well, we have to do something.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I found it really exciting seeing the seeing not just amongst women, but all sorts of people engaging and protesting and talking about politics and change in an energized way like I haven't really seen before.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just, and that was another thing that was really cool about the Women's March. It was everybody, you know, it wasn't just women marching, and it was, there were men and children, and it was really cool to see that support. And also it was, you know, very diverse. I mean, it wasn't like, I don't know, it was just, I feel like it was like there were so many different groups of people represented, and everybody was marching together. And so there was like this kind of, yeah, like great energy in the streets. And also the fact that because of social media, the turnouts everywhere. And I think it was also important to send a message to the rest of the world that, you know, we did not, all of us, vote this person in that's full of hate and misogyny and xenophobia and all of these things, you know, because we're judged by other people. I mean, like, what does that say about us? So,
yeah,
you know, I think that having, actually had a great conversation with this guy, and he was just like, you know, I have my daughter, and he was just saying how he was from Africa, and he's like, you know, to see when people watch this, they get inspired because they can say, oh, well, we can take a stand. Like, we don't have to put up with this, with injustices, and we can be like advocates and like fight for social justice on many levels. It's not just this one issue, and that they felt empowered that they could do so.
Yeah. And so are you engaged in any other political issues or work right now besides that, or is that the last that was the last thing you
for the Women's March?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel a little bit like my daily life involves this, because working as a counselor in schools and being in full-time graduate school, my school focuses on multicultural competencies and on social justice advocacy. So, and I work in a New York City, very diverse public school where there's all kinds of, you know, issues with kids from, you know, race and socioeconomics and disability. There's so much, you know, there's so many layers. And I just feel like the work that I do is part of that, learning how to be an advocate and an ally. And so I guess in terms of like activism, that would be my biggest thing.
Okay. There's two directions I'm considering going with the next question, and you get to choose which one you want to go down.
Okay.
All right. So one thread is to talk about power and power struggles, like personal experiences with that, and the other thread is more like talking about like spirituality and maybe aliens and things like that. Or you can come up with your own thread and we'll go there.
Spirituality and maybe aliens.
Yeah, those overlap for me.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that. I mean, power is always interesting, but I think I'm going to go the spirituality route. Okay.
So the setup question for this topic is, do you believe there is anyone in the universe listening to this conversation besides you and I, and obviously anyone that might happen to be on Facebook or something?
I mean, I believe in higher beings out there and like energies. Are they particularly tuned into this conversation right now? Maybe not.
So,
I mean, possibly, sure.
Well, but do you believe it, or do you just think it's possible?
I mean, are you asking like, are people randomly tuned in watching all of us, or is it more like we each have our own guardian alien that's like listening and watching?
Well, it could be. There are lots of possibilities for what other entities could be listening into any random conversation on Earth.
Even the Russians. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, besides all of humans and governments, and that, you know, this is going over the internet, so there's all sorts of people that could be tapping into this. But besides that, you know, there's the possibility of, if you believe in gods or ghosts or demons or spirits or anything like that, there's that whole thing. If you believe in aliens, you know, if potentially aliens have visited Earth, they could be listening to this stuff, or we could be living in a computer simulation or some sort, and so people on the outside of that could be.
Yeah, there's all different realities. There's all different states of consciousness. So I think in terms of like, I love that you're calling it alien, extraterrestrial beings. Well, it's interesting you should bring this up because this does link back to the Mad Bombers. No, I'm just kidding. Well, our grandfather, Pa, we're from Boston, to anyone who's listening.
Well, I'm not from Boston. I was born in I was born in D.C.
So you're not from, but you're there every summer and Christmas.
Yes, our roots are in Massachusetts.
Yeah, everybody else grew up in Boston.
Yeah.
And anyways, I remember Pa always used to like really know people, and he'd be like, "Oh, you know, that Brian, he's going to be a lawyer." And he became a lawyer, and he just like knew all these things about people, and he was pretty spot on. It was like a thing, you know.
Yeah.
Irish intuition, I don't know. And so the thing he would always say about me when I would walk in, he'd be like, "There's my granddaughter. She just came down to visit her grandfather from Jupiter. She just landed a spaceship on the roof." And as I've gotten older, I'm like, what was that about? You know, like, he like picked up on the fact that I was kind of other or different. I don't know. But it was always endearing. Like I didn't think of it as like in a negative way. So I mean, yeah, do I believe that like other things exist out besides Earth? Absolutely.
What was it like growing up on Jupiter?
It was a fine place. I mean, it was a little isolating at times, but it was way more interesting than planet Earth. And
yeah, he thought you were a space cadet.
True. Or just a unique and interesting being who didn't really fit into a box.
Yeah, well, and that you have always been.
Or is it other realities actually exist, or is it that we have like neurodiversity in our brain? I mean, there's so many things. But in terms of, are you linking extraterrestrial beings to your spirituality? Like, I'm confused.
I'm just saying, if there is an entity that is listening, that is outside of our our mainstream idea of the way reality works, that there's the only intelligent beings we know of are humans living on Earth. If there's gods, or there's aliens, or there's computer programmers outside the Matrix, then those all kind of go together in one lump for me as like somebody else listening that might have power over the world in some way, or my life in some way. So they're all kind of aliens to me, you know. If any of them are real. Although you brought up, I'm gonna have to add a fourth category. What you said, the neuro. What'd you say? Some sort
Neurodiversity.
Neurodiversity. What did you mean by that?
Well, you know, there's all this talk about like autism and people being on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Which I prefer to think of it as a tapestry. But
on the tapestry.
On the tapestry. So, you know, there's all this talk about neurodiversity and like, oh, you know, kids with ADHD, it's this big epidemic, and brain development, but a lot of it is like, well, do people actually have, why are we putting these labels on things when really it's just that people have diversity in how they think and view the world, and it's just individual. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have some sort of like mental illness or like some sort of a disability or something, you know? So if you have like neurodiversity, you're like, or, you know, there's all this talk about like indigo children. So it's like, if you have this other sense of greater beings or an awareness, and a lot of that, it gets into spirituality with like meditation or meditative practice. Like, how do we reach these higher states of consciousness and awareness and like awakening? So does that mean that you're like weird or like alien, or does it mean that people just have different capacities in their brain and that their brains are wired differently? So maybe they're living in alternate realities, you know?
Yeah. It sort of reminds me of I remember studying different cultures, different maybe even like Native American cultures that had evolved their culture to give unique parts, roles in their society to people that, you know, we might in our society say they are in some way flawed.
Are you speaking about sexuality now?
That probably is.
Well, no, because like in many indigenous cultures, there's like a different category for gender. It's not just the binary. They have like Native Americans have like two-spirit, and then other cultures like in Hawaii have a third gender, you know? So there's like, yeah, there's like more acceptance of this natural sort of fluidity or like development of other people, that we don't all fit into this binary, you know?
Yeah. Gosh, I'm getting this sense that in the USA, we are uniquely cloistered in our cultural development, and I guess all going back to our Protestant roots or something, or I don't know. Is it Protestant?
I thought we were Catholic.
Well, I don't know. My mind says that isn't there some story of this country being largely founded by Protestants, but maybe that's not.
Yeah, or like like Christian fundamentalists.
Maybe it's more of maybe you just call it a Christian sort of moral worldview or something. It's sort of at the foundation of this country. Yeah.
It's all about like hierarchical thinking and binary thinking.
Yeah, and geez, it's just like we just seem sort of backwards compared to a lot of the world in some things.
For as far as we've come with technology and things like that.
Yeah, but we've got the best weapons.
Isn't that great? But we can't educate our children.
That's not a good formula. Best weapons, worse education, you know,
and like pharmaceutical addictions and well, and you mentioned something about ghosts, or
ghosts.
There's this concept, if you want to link it to spirituality, about the hungry ghost. Have you heard about the realm of the hungry ghost?
Yeah, I have that. I have a book called that. Is that where it comes from, or is it comes from something?
Yeah,
else?
I think so. So it's just like a different reality. Like you have the human realm, which is like our day to day, and then the animal realm, which is like desires, and then the realm of the hungry ghost is that image of like a small head and a small neck, but this huge extended stomach. And I think it's like in general, but especially in American culture of like consumerism and social media addiction, like it's, instead of focusing inward, which can get into religion or spirituality, people are always looking for external things to fill the inner void. So it's like basically they keep, you know, whether it's, they're eating, because you have an addiction to like, of course, drugs and alcohol, but then there's food and like sex and whatever, gambling, you know, there's so many different types of addiction. Social media, but it's more socially condoned. But so it's basically like you keep trying to like fill this stomach that never gets filled because you're trying to fill it with external things as opposed to like turning inward. And I think that, just to link it to what you said about American culture, it's like, well, because also of this like consumerism and this stresses and the anxiety and the economy, the way that everything is, it's like people are never satiated. So it's like a vicious cycle too, so that they're disconnected to nature and they're disconnected to like their inner worlds, because they're not taking the time to like unplug from everything and focus inward.
Yeah. Yeah, that is that's actually something I think about a lot. I've been, I've been meditating quite a bit for the last 5 or 6 years, and it's made me think a lot about addiction and sort of noticing exactly what you're talking about, the subtle little addictions of normal life, of entertainment and stimulation and
distraction.
Yeah, and it's really, that's what a habit is. A habit is just an addiction. It's a rut that you stay in, and it's hard to get out of, just like any other, just like an addiction. And sometimes even when you actually try to break a habit or a rut, you find it is an addiction. It is just as challenging.
It is, and I think it's hard because I think that we all have these like irrational beliefs or these irrational thoughts buzzing around in our mind. And I think that that's what meditation, and other types of like cognitive behavioral therapy, but like in a spirituality or religious aspect, like meditation can help with those irrational thoughts, or like Buddhism says, like you change your irrational beliefs. And my best friend in my program is Orthodox Jewish, and she said, like in Judaism, a lot of it is also about changing your thoughts and changing these irrational belief systems. And so I think that we all have these like inner saboteurs, if that's what you call it,
mm-hmm.
or these scripts that we like tell ourselves, or like a narrative, right?
Yeah.
Like I could spend the rest of my life saying, I'm not good enough, I'm unlovable because I never got to be in the Mad Bombers. Say that to myself until the end of time.
Like you have been saying.
And I have been saying it, but now I'm changing the script. And I think that often like the self-sabotaging and that sort of lack of self-compassion and continuing in that loop, in that sort of irrational loop or obsessive thinking, then leads to those self-soothing, which a lot of it is addiction. And again, it doesn't have to be drugs and alcohol. It's, food, it's the internet. I just read this article about people and their cell phones. 1 out of 3 people said that they would rather give up sex than their cell phones.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for that. I think a lot of people are probably having a lot of bad,
I was going to say that. I was like, well, who are these people who are not having good sex? But that's just one statistic. It's like there's also just, the average teenager sends 110 text messages a day. And, they check their phone 150 times a day, something like that. I'm not good with numbers. I don't remember all the numbers. But.
Yeah. Well, that's like, that's reminded me of I compose these stand-up routines in my head that I might someday give, or I just give them to myself. But one is about, I've heard comics sort of rip into people for walking around like looking at their cell phones and just spending all this time. And so I want to turn that upside down and, say to people, if you're in a room with somebody and they have their cell phone, it's like people get upset that they're paying attention to the cell phone rather than the people in the room.
Yeah.
But I've come to sort of, look at it the other way. Our cell phones are these magical devices connected to like all human knowledge and every video ever created by humanity. And it's really kind of presumptuous to think you are more interesting than all of human knowledge and everything that a cell phone can connect you to.
We're not even saying that because nobody is that interesting, because it's like any addiction, the addiction wins over the human connection.
I don't think it's an addiction. I don't see it as an addiction. I used to feel really rude taking out my phone and looking at it, but now I'm like, you know what? If the people around me are not interesting to me, why not look at something that has some interest? And Well,
I think though, but it gets into it's a slippery slope, Matthew, because I feel like it's just again about like connection and like what you said about I don't know, it's like it's people are disconnecting and they're not, and it's like, where's the human interaction? And if you want to link it again to that spirituality component, it's like, well, where's being present? Like, the whole thing about meditation or Buddhism, it's like being in the moment and being awake to like the here and now. And if people are constantly in their phones, then they're not really focused. They're not being really present.
Well, I don't think that's actually, well, I mean, they might not be focused. That's different. But technically, we're always in the present. Even if we're thinking about a memory, you're thinking about it in the present. If you're thinking about your planning, I mean, you can only exist in the present. It's just really what you're paying attention to.
That's true.
But I mean, to me, I mean, I would take it back to the human connection thing. When I'm with people, I want to connect on a really deep, meaningful level. And in my experience, but that's not very common. Most people aren't used to that, and so
right. Or it's hard for them. It's people don't like to make themselves vulnerable, or it's
and they make it difficult for you to connect at that level. They block it or deflect or whatever, and so then it just becomes sort of work. And that's when I decide, okay, well, we're going to stay at this sort of level. I'm bored, so I'm going to move on to something else. But I don't really do that. But that's kind of the way I always look for that in my. I always want to like talk about something really substantive and meaningful, or funny, or exciting. I've always sort of had this incredible distaste for small talk and for chit chat.
I know you have.
Have you noticed that?
Yeah. And I know a lot of people that say that, and part of me, definitely understands, because I mean, I can see that side of it, but I also feel like, for a lot of people, sometimes there's like some beauty in the small talk, and it's also like it's almost like a warm up, right? You have to like get to know people, but I can see both sides of that. I think it's hard for people to do the work in terms of, if we're constantly on our devices, if we're looking at YouTube videos and watching Netflix and falling asleep to Netflix, and the first thing people do is check their phone in the morning when they wake up. And, on the subway, if I look around, it's like a sci-fi, like Ray Bradbury novel, like no one's looking except anywhere but their phones. It's kind of creepy. And
you really want people to talk to each other on the subway?
I mean, on the subway, no. Okay, you have a point. That I'll give you. But I don't know, just, the work that's really hard is like sitting with ourselves and tuning everything else out and just going inward, and seeing what rises up and what comes up, and learning how to like experience it and not push it away, and just kind of like experience it and then kind of like let it go, like that impermanence. And I did a 10-day silent meditation, if you can believe it.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
It's a Vipassana. So it's 10 days and it's free. They have them all over the world and all over the United States and stuff.
And how many hours a day do you meditate?
Oh my God, so many. Like, you wake up at 4:30 in the morning and you're meditating basically until like 9 p.m., which is, I mean, there's breaks and there's like breakfast and lunch.
And no talking, right?
No, zero, none. Except at the end of the evening, people could go and ask the like teacher a question, and then you could at one point in the week ask a question to the teacher. And of course you could talk if it was a necessity. I mean, if there was something really wrong or you had to communicate something, there's like staff that are there that you could talk to if you had to.
Mm-hmm.
So 10 days is a long time, because you can't write. So it's not even like you could be like writing in a journal or you're not reading a book. Like you're just there.
They wouldn't let you go write on breaks?
No, you're not supposed to write anything, because the whole point is that you have feelings or you have these thoughts, and then you kind of like let them go. Like things rise up and then you kind of let them go. And it's very difficult, but it's really brilliant, because for all of that time, like you kind of go in these like dips and waves of like, okay, I'm present and I'm able to do this. And then, oh my God, my mind's drifting. And then you also learn so much about like projections, like how much we project onto other people. And like again, it's like this obsessive thinking. and also if you get back to power, like the power that we give other people, in terms of, there was this woman who slept next to me and meditated behind me the entire time. And I was like so annoyed by her for like the first 5 days. I was like, she was like moaning and groaning, and she snored. Oh my God, she snored. Snoring's like a deal breaker for me. She snored so loud. And we were already getting up at like, the bell would ring at 4 a.m. I was like, I'm going to kill this. This is awful. And I just, like, I was obsessively giving her this power, right? Like, and then there was another girl there who I just, for some reason, was convinced she hated me. I'm like, that girl hates me. Meanwhile, we don't talk. Like, what? And it's amazing because, like, around day 5, the woman who was making all this noise, because I did go, you're supposed to go once to talk to the, like, guru teacher guy.
Yeah.
So I said to him, I was like, there's this woman who's making a lot of noise, like extraneous noise that is not part of like the power of silence that we said we would do. And he just looked at me and he was like, yeah, I'm not going to say anything to her. Part of your work here is that you have to learn to give it less importance. Because it's true, right? Like, we live in cities, we live in these places where there's distractions and things, but we have to like learn to not give it the power and tune it out. And after he said that to me, and then I saw her break down, like, she had this moment where she was like crying and talking to and like everybody was connecting to her. She was saying what everybody was probably feeling. And I just felt this compassion for her. And then afterwards, like for the next, 4 or 5 days, I really didn't hear her anymore. And I was wondering, I'm like, is that because I just gave it less importance? Is it because she was doing different work? But it was kind of amazing. And then on the last day when we were allowed to talk to everybody, the girl who I had told myself and was convinced that she hated me was so nice. She came up to me. She's like, hey, how are you? So much of it is just like, we're so in our heads. And that's why I think the connection constantly to that stimulation of like, social media isn't good, because I don't know. I mean, it is powerful. It can be used as a tool, but I just think a lot of it just keeps us disconnected and into ourselves mostly.
Yeah. Well, I wrote a book all about how I think everyone really should meditate. It's like, if you want to be happy and really, get a feel for what actually makes you happy and what really makes you happy and what's just an addiction, then meditation is like the healthiest practice that I know of.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I have not done a 10-day meditation retreat. I've done like a 4 or 5 day one. And
it's a long time to commit.
Yeah.
I mean, I was only able to do it when I lived in Mexico. I couldn't have done that in my New York days because I didn't have the time off. And
yeah.
Or, if you get a 10-day vacation, you don't really want to spend it sitting on a cushion necessarily.
Well, until you meditate enough that you recognize how good that makes you feel.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's but the meditation retreats that I go to, they are not so strict. They I'm not really good with rules and hard and fast rules, and so the meditation retreats I go to, you can it is usually silence, but you're actually encouraged to journal, and I find that really valuable for my process. And
absolutely. I really wish that I could have. I almost like wanted to like sneak pieces of paper. I was like going to be like a secret writer.
Yeah.
I stayed in. I understand why they have you do it. It was definitely an incredible experience, one I would never want to do again. But
yeah, I totally can understand the idea of not talking ever again. I've heard of lots of spiritual gurus and things that have just stopped talking, and they might like communicate through just writing or writing on a chalkboard or something. But I totally get that. I could see myself not ever talking again.
It'll take away the whole small talk issue that you have.
Yeah.
And also then the less you talk, the more, it's kind of like maybe you could even commune with aliens because you'd be way more in tune. Have you seen speaking of Netflix and social media,
mm-hmm.
Now I'm a hypocrite. I'm like, wow, have you seen the latest? No. Have you seen Black Mirror?
Oh yeah. I love Black Mirror. That's like, I think some of the best television that's been made.
It's so good. So the episode, I think it's the first episode in season 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's with the people constantly rating each other.
I like skipped that episode. For some reason, I like couldn't get into it, and so I skipped it.
Oh, it's painful to watch, but to me that speaks volumes about like in the near future where our society is headed.
Yeah, it's already going on. There's so much rating and reputation.
I mean, people wait for the likes, and they say that like when your cell phone goes off and makes those noises, it's like the same as dopamine. It releases like dopamine in the brain. That's kind of like basically being like a drug addict. But I just remember the name of the episode for any listeners or aliens that might be curious. It's called Nosedive.
Mm.
And it's really, but it's true. It's like people just walk around like rating each other. And some people, I didn't even realize that this is a thing. See, I'm in school with all these like millennials. They're so young.
Yeah.
And we were talking about like something like the 100 Club where people freak out. Like this one girl was like, I have a friend who will put a picture on Facebook, and if she doesn't get at least 100 likes, she takes it down. It's like this weird, I know, right? It's like this constant validation. They need this constant validation, and it's kind of twisted. It's so sad because I see people. I live in New York City. You know, obviously I see a ton of tourists taking pictures. And I feel like even the way people take pictures now, it's not to remember a beautiful present moment with their friends and loved ones, but it's more like, this is going to be a good, you know, on Instagram, or like, you know, it's just crazy. It's like, so people are even like shaping. That's why that episode is good. It's like, it's called Nosedive. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely something that people need to learn how to have an enlightened experience of social media. And it's interesting because reputation and voting are, I think, two incredibly important technologies we now have access to on a global scale, using the internet.
Didn't stop Trump. No, I'm just kidding.
We haven't mastered it. We're still in our infant stages. But
basically, society went to shit as soon as the selfie stick was invented.
Yeah, but you have a choice. You have a choice of how seriously you take your online reputation. I sold some of my wife's boots on eBay, and I've been on eBay like since it was created, and so but I don't really care if I have a great reputation on there, and I sold these boots, and the person who bought them, it took me like a week before I shipped them out, just because I had other things to do and it wasn't that big a priority, and I shipped it out to the person, and they sent me this because they were like, where is it? You haven't sent me any. And I was like, I sent them the tracking info, and they're like, you didn't ship it until 5 days after I bought it. You should refund me my shipping costs for the inconvenience. And I just ignored them. It's just like, I guess they might give me a bad rating, but it's like I'm not Walmart, I'm not like, I don't care if your experience shopping with me was all that great.
Yeah, but it's because again, we're just in a society of instant gratification. Like, people expect things immediately, whether it's those boots or a like on their profile picture, or whatever it is. Like, even I think about when we were little. I'm sorry, I'm so glad. Like, some days I'm like, I feel so old. Oh my God, I'm like middle-aged. And then mostly I'm like, yes, thank God I'm a Gen Xer and not a millennial. Like I remember like when we were little and we wanted to record a song, like our favorite song,
Yeah.
We'd have to sit by and listen to it, like, with our hand on like play and record at the same time. And I remember in 7th grade, I lied to my mother and walked like an hour to the mall to buy the single of a song that I liked. And now kids can just go on like, whatever, iTunes, and buy it instantaneously. And there's something, they can Shazam it. I don't know. Look, I'm not totally like, there's a lot of great things about accessibility and information, but I also just think that it's instant gratification thing of like, people just, if you send a text to somebody now, they expect like an answer right away. I mean, it's awful. You can even see when people checked it, if it was online, like. I don't know.
I just think we have to learn how to deal with these tools and these abilities, and then we can design tools that give the level of transparency we want to give. But I totally agree, these are really difficult. These are like all new types of addictions, all new types of challenges that anyone born today has to figure out. I mean, I feel lucky. I mean, we did have TV growing up, and that was man, I was addicted to TV.
Really?
Yeah, I watched so much TV and movies over and over again as a kid. So I feel lucky that my brain works as well as it does, considering.
Yeah, but I think to counter that, to be fair, our generation was like, we didn't have war going on. We didn't have like as many unsafe conditions, perhaps. And I don't know, we were out riding bikes. We were still out playing epic, neighborhood games of hide and go seek. And sure, there was bullying, but we didn't have cyberbullying. I mean, I think I was totally bullied in elementary school, and I think I would have been dead if like people could take that to the next level and put it on, social media. So I think it's, in terms of activism, I think that activism comes in many forms. And I think part of activism is like learning how to be more present and helping people navigate, especially children, navigate this new world order or like culture that they've inherited.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think it's going to get more crazy. I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg of how crazy technology is going to change our world.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think that part of the activism is also, again, being an activist about, sure, social justice and all of these issues, but also being an activist for what do you call it? Like inner peace. I don't know, for being present, like to be fighting against some of, I almost feel like parents nowadays have to be hardcore activists just to get their kids less connected to all of these options.
Yeah. Well, for me, and I sort of explore that thread in my book, I talk about meditation is really just a type of activism in your own mind. It's like saying, all right, we're going to be still here, and we're going to let everything in the mind sort of churn away and speak its piece until everything calms down and gets quiet, and then we'll see what we're left with and what we want to do. And so it's just sort of a type of personal activism, and then for me, it helps me see how to be active in other people's lives and the world more clearly.
Absolutely, clarity. Yeah. And then also, we're not such a joke to the aliens watching above. They're like, well, look at those fools.
Or they just see us as children. Or they're still learning. They're still figuring out how to not be complete dicks to each other.
Yeah. How's that working out? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, yes, there's still a lot of work to do. There's still a lot of horrible things going on right now everywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this was fun. We went on all sorts of
I know, sorry.
topics. I love it. That was great.
Thanks. Due to my neurodiversity, I took us off course a little bit. I apologize.
Carrie Haw, spokeswoman for neurodiversity. Awesome. Well, is there any final thoughts you would like to share with our vast audience? Although there might not be a lot of people listening right now, I have the sense that this podcast is about to take off, and so people will be listening to these back episodes.
I think to just, everybody to make time to slow down in their daily life, whether it's 5 minutes in the morning or before bed, to just kind of tune inward and, I think that's pretty much it. Oh, and if you have, for all those men out there listening, if you have female cousins in your life, include them in your home videos.
You mean like kids growing up, include your sisters and...
Yeah, and just don't exclude people in general, whether it's a cousin because of gender, whether it's regardless of any reason. Try not to exclude others.
That's a nice message. That's a nice thought.
Yeah, it links into power. It's like learn how to use your power for the good.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Cool. Well, I guess we'll wrap up there. I'm gonna hit the road and go drive to the ferry. So thank you so much. What?
Thank you. I said I love the ferry.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being my 16th guest, or well, at least not my 16th episode. And I'm sure we will do it again.
All right. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me, boss man. You're
All
making up for lost time.
All right. All right. All right, Harasi. Until next time, this is Matt Reddy, a.k.a. Boss Man, and Carrie Haw, a.k.a. Harasi, signing off.
Bye.
All right, so I'm going to stop the stream. And then we just go from there and we talk about whatever we want. Although there is another, sometimes I talk about power, how you handle power struggles. And there's another, sometimes I talk about power, how you handle power.
I like that.
Let's see. I think I'm live now and everything's working right. And let's see if you... I'm just going to do a quick test here.
Okay.
Let's see if you... I'm just going to do a quick test here.
Okay.
Yep, alright, you're coming through. Alright, you ready? And unless
I'm ready, yes.
And we'll set a timer for, because I have to make sure we do stop. So because I have to drive somewhere.
Okay.
I need to be there by 11, 9:30. Yeah, so we should really stop at 9:15 at the latest.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to just set a little timer that says that. Maybe 9:10, 9:10, in case we get going.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we are live. Hello out there. This is Matt Reddy, host of the Mindful Activist webcast, and the founder of the Global Consensus Project, developer of the Hive1.net platform, and author of the book Revolutionary Mindfulness, and elected politician in Jefferson County, Washington State. And this is our 16th episode, and I am joined today by an amazing young woman named Carrie Haw, who I have known my entire life because she is my cousin. And let me see, if I was going to describe you, Carrie, to the world, gosh, I would just say you're an amazing, intelligent, funny person. That's what I.
Boss man.
Yeah. You're welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be a part of your 16th episode because 16 is my favorite number, so we're off to a good start. Nice.
All right. And we're doing this audio only because that takes some of the pressure off of it lets us focus on the conversation rather than thinking about what we. Yes, as opposed
to my radiance.
Yeah. So this is the first one that I've done like sitting at a computer that was audio only. So it's a little weird. Hey, Helen.
Hi, Matt.
All right. So we'll go ahead and make an attempt at getting started here. So Alex and Yaron, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right. So I'm looking into this camera right here. So thank you, please. No, I think I'm going to keep it down for that. Thanks. So, thank you all for coming to this event. And hello, anyone that's watching. Thank you so much, Yaron and Alex, for joining. There might be people dropping in. There might be people dropping in over the video conference during this event.
Hey, Matt.
Yes.
You're pretty backlit there. Hard to see.
You don't like my camera work?
I love the angle.
Well, no. Well, okay. Let's see what that does. I don't think that does.
A lamp or something you put in front of you?
Well, I'm going to turn the camera, but I got to warn the audience that I'm going to turn the camera before I do that, and then it'll blow it. See, we'll have all sorts of different light over here. See, look, there's the audience. But I don't want to put people on camera until I've told them. All right? Okay. Okay. So my name is Matt Reddy, and I'm an elected politician. I'm an activist. I'm a meditation practitioner and mindfulness enthusiast. I've published this book, Revolutionary Mindfulness, and I put on this event. And I also host a podcast or webcast called The Mindful Activist. And so I've been, and actually two people here have been guests on my podcast. So Alex was a guest, and Scotty was a guest on one of my shows. Yaron is like our #1 fan. He's watched at least 2 or 3 of the episodes.
I got a t-shirt.
You got a t-shirt? Or you want a t-shirt?
Yeah.
So today is a really unique event and day for me to try to put this on. It's 2 things. And one of the reasons it's challenging is because it's a very new type of thing I'm trying to do. So this is kind of part podcast, it's part book event, and it's part General Assembly. Anyone know what a General Assembly is? Raise your hand if you know what a General Assembly is, online or anywhere. Anyone? Alex, you know what a General Assembly is, but you're just sitting there quietly. What's a General Assembly, Alex?
I sit on.
I didn't quite hear that. What did you say?
I said decision.
Decision-making body. Yes. Okay. So where do we begin? I mean, one of the reasons it's also confusing is the way I invited people here today. Was I did a couple different things. I made a couple personal invites. So Yaron and Alex, Helen and Scotty are personal invites to come here to be part of whatever happened, because I wasn't sure if anyone else would show up. And I'm trying to do what is like a new type of online meeting, where it's an egalitarian meeting. It's a General Assembly. A General Assembly is something I learned about in the Occupy movement. Everyone heard of the Occupy movement? No? So, well, the Occupy movement was a big movement, and it started in 2011. It started in Zuccotti Park in New York. People occupied the space and demanded change in the way our government works. And one of the things they did during the Occupy movement was they used General Assemblies, which were egalitarian meetings, which were meetings attempting to give everyone in the room equal power. Alex, who just left the camera, he helped me organize the first Port Townsend General Assembly, and he actually helped me co-facilitate it at the Unitarian Fellowship here. I was very active in it, and one of the things I learned during it was I felt like there was some sort of genius in egalitarian meetings and in consensus-based meetings and in trying to do what they were doing during the Occupy movement. And I learned a lot about how to facilitate egalitarian meetings. And I set out on a project, and the project involved this book. And basically this book was my first step in trying to explain what it is I think we need to do in the world to make the world, to change it the way it needs to change. I don't know about you, but I think the world's we got some issues in the way power works in the world. And we need to really be innovative about changing that. Okay, so the other thing I just want to say, I didn't say it was going to be a book reading. That's not what I told the leader. I know it got put in the paper like I was going to do a book reading, but I told the leader I was doing a general assembly, so I was even tempted not to even read from the book during this. But 5 people showed up for a book reading, so I hope everyone will forgive me. I'm going to actually read a part from the book. Any objection to that? The 4 people I invited I didn't say we're coming to a book reading. All right? So I'm going to do that briefly. Who here has written a book? Raise your hand if you've written a book before. Well, how many has written a book? Anyone else? Have you guys written a book? I'm looking at you, Ron and Alex. No? Okay. I'm just going to jump right into the end. When you let go of your fear and seek wisdom, then wisdom rewards you with courage, strength, and confidence in a way those who live intoxicated by folly never know. Let us not merely seek mindful wisdom for ourselves only, let us seek it for the entire world. I fully accept the world as it is right now. There is much suffering. I know that every moment there is needless violence and death. And if it were happening within my view, I would likely collapse in horror. I know there is injustice perpetuated by greed and intolerance. I know there is much of great value wasted. I also know there is much joy and flourishing happiness in this vast world. The world is a jungle of every type of experience, good and bad, dark and light, and to some extent, I think it will always be this way. Accepting the world as it is right now is not the same as accepting that it must remain this way forever. We can accept and love the universe exactly as it is, be in perfect equanimity while also seeking to nurture, heal, and make things better and more beautiful. So, anyone who does read this book, you're going to get a glimpse into how I approach meditation, how I approach mindfulness, and how I approach life. And you're going to hear how these things have taken me through the world of activism and politics. And it will take you to this, to understand this activity that we're doing here. So I'm going to read just one part at the very end of the book, because in a way this book is just an invitation to moments like this. The Global Consensus Project. I've created a central nexus where I'm inviting people like you and I to come together and work for positive, mindful change in this world. It is called the Global Consensus Project. The goal of this project is to build platforms and host events that help facilitate positive egalitarian power change in the world. As part of this project, I developed Hive1.net. It's an ever-evolving, crowdsourced, egalitarian, interactive mind map social media platform. This mildly ambitious purpose of this platform is to help humanity learn to function as a mass egalitarian hive mind instead of a violent, oppressive hierarchy. It seems to me those are the only 2 choices really open to a society of conscious beings. And technology has finally reached a point where a functional and healthy human hive mind can be achieved. If you want to learn more about this, you can visit hive1.net. Once a month,
I will be helping facilitate a consensus-based General Assembly using the Hive1.net platform. My current intention is to host these General Assemblies at 10 a.m. Pacific Time on the third Thursday of the month, starting in January 2017. I hope to see you there. So, this is the third Thursday of the month, so this is one of my first attempts at doing a General Assembly, an egalitarian meeting with what I hope is fairly mindful facilitation. And I have the dual role of facilitating and also being the technical person, and so it makes it a little more challenging. As I do these each month, I'll hope to have different people come in and facilitate, like Alex is a professional facilitator, and Helen is an amazing consensus facilitator. Different people could be facilitating the group. And what we're going to do now, if it's okay with everyone here, is we're going to have an egalitarian discussion. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to ask questions, and whoever wants to participate can participate. And if you don't want to participate, you can just pass. And I have two amazing friends of mine joining us online, and there might be more people joining online during this. And you can at any time you can get up and leave, of course. It'll just be sort of a fluid event. Is that okay with everyone? Any objection to doing that? You just sort of say, anyone freaked out or uncomfortable by this concept? Okay.
Well, are you going to explain mindfulness is?
What mindfulness is? I could. First start talking about mindfulness. That could be a first topic, and maybe I wouldn't be the only one speaking. Would that be okay way to approach that?
Would you?
Well, why don't we start with this? This will help. The first step in an egalitarian meeting is we just quickly kind of just go around. Everyone who wants to can just sort of say your name, and you can say a little why you're here. Like, what is it that drew you here? Even if it's just Matt asked me to come. Whatever your answer is. So we would try that first. Is that okay with everyone? And so, does anyone have a problem with being on camera? Because I'm actually going to turn the camera around and have it on you while you're speaking. Is everyone okay with that? You're really nervous? Yes. Okay. So let's give that a try, and we'll start with our camera, our television guest, if that's all right. Yaron, would you like to introduce yourself and say a little bit about why you're here?
Sure. So first of all, good evening from Tel Aviv, Israel. I think I'm the first guest ever. I know Matt since he was a school kid in middle school. And I am a fan of this ever since, including the new book. And so I came to join. First of all, anything that Matt would have invited me to do, I would come. He didn't tell me anything about why we're here, but now that I hear about it, I'm actually quite excited. I'm a free-time entrepreneur in the tech world, and my most recent company pioneered the what's called crowdsourcing. In terms, crowdsourcing is basically harnessing the collective knowledge of all people in the network in order to produce some sort of benefit for the network. And the company, the financial services space called Milgard, harness the collective knowledge of people who are checking their credit card bills to identify patterns that benefit everybody by spotting wrongful purchases, fraud, overspending, things like that. And it turned out that it was very effective in saving hundreds of millions of dollars for every network And so this concept of, first of all, in general, any kind of egalitarian system is something I philosophically believe in, but also parsing our collective experience, knowledge. There's a broad range of people, and so for us to be able to sit together and read our point of view is very honored to be a part of. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Alex, would you like to introduce yourself just briefly? You're muted. Hold on. Or somehow.
That was me.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is Al. And I'm just having to speak to that. And so I did something that I now refer to conflict environment. It's 10 years, and now put a phrase on the website. So today is that I didn't really talk about it, but I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Alright, I guess I'm going to have to upgrade these speakers. We could definitely do better here. So, we can now, let's just go in a, well, not a circle, but we'll go like person to person. Your name, what brought you here?
Hi, my name's Laura. I'm here in town visiting my grandma. We found out about this event in the newspaper, but I work at middle school, and most recently I've been doing some training to teach mindfulness as an educator. And so that's what attracted me here with the tiny book and reading my beautiful poem. And so, my grandmother.
Hey, Matt, you know that you could not correct something that I couldn't hear her at all.
Yes. What can we do here? We can move the microphone a little bit. I knew today the technical part of this would be especially fun. So I moved the mic a little bit, and we could try to speak a little bit louder. But your name was Laura, and a mindfulness educator brought you here. Would you like to introduce?
Sure. Well, I saw the article in the paper. It was a nice big article, and Laura was coming to visit, so I saved it for her. I hadn't read it through, but she noted that you were speaking this morning, so that's why we're here.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Okay.
So I wanted to know more.
Great.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Abby, and I read the article in the Leader, interested in the topic, newish to Port Townsend, so curious about who's doing what and what's up.
Awesome.
And I'm Virginia, and knowing that you're an activist, I feel that the world's in terrible turmoil, which is increasing. And I believe, and that's what I'll find out from you today, is that mindfulness or meditation has no room for fear, and anger. And I feel that this is what we need to try to eliminate in the world and try to bring it together as a whole.
Very nice. Great stuff to talk about there.
Hey, I'm Scotty, and my name is Scott McNabb. I'm from Port Townsend, but I live in Bremerton, and I've worked with Matt before on his podcast and just talking about all sorts of stuff. I'm a retired Air Force guy, photojournalist, and I kind of, my Port Townsend roots and my growing up a hippie kid, it's stuck with me through the whole thing, and it was a difficult journey to spend 20 years in the military with different moral values, and I feel like I dedicated those 20 years, unfortunately, to the business of war, but I want to dedicate the remainder of my life to the business of peace. And I am a father of daughters, and I think it's important to show them that it's time for me to have something to say and to speak about the things that matter to me and impact all of us.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hello, my name is John. Hello, everyone. I came today for the meditation part. That's what I read about, and I'm on a journey through meditation and for the last 20 years. And I thought it'd be very interesting to hear your input on it, but now that I hear the political side, I'm even more interested. So thank you for putting this on, and people from around the world can watch this, so thanks again.
Awesome.
I'm Robin. Been more and more interested in activism. Been interested in activism since a teenager, but there wasn't anybody else doing much, and I just was frustrated as all get out that people were just accepting the status quo. And finally, this year, people are waking up and getting involved in activism, and this was just one more avenue to explore and see if this would fit for what we want to do.
Great.
Hi, my name is Dave, and as someone pointed out recently in a conversation, as bad as the situation is, it does have the advantage that more and more people are realizing that we don't have to put up with this. We can't afford to put up with this. Those of you that have children, they're going to be going through a hell if we don't do something very fast. And so this man was saying that actually this is good because now maybe people will get mad enough that they will stop just accepting, oh, that's okay, politicians always lie, or this or that, corruption, and just stop accepting that as the norm and do something about it to peacefully to put pressure on them and cause things to change. And I would also appreciate a definition of mindful meditation, because I hear the word thrown around a lot, but no one's ever really explained what it means. And I've been into meditation for a long time, various types of meditation. There are lots of kinds, and but I'm not familiar with the definition of mindful meditation.
Great. All right.
Hi, my name is Helen, and I'm here because Matt invited me. And Matt and I are both living at the Eco Village in Fort Townsend, and our vision is to learn how to live in harmony with each other and with the earth. So that's our goal, and we have about 25 people living there now, including children, and we're looking at expanding as well. So I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Scotty, would you just be the man of the camera and point it at whatever you want to? Because that will give me one less thing to think about. Is that all right? Yep. And you can point it at yourself. Okay, so we're just going to keep going and do this in an egalitarian way. Ideally, this would be a circle, because already, and this is something I talk about in the book, power is thinking about how power works. And in a group, any sort of group setting, power is immediately at work. And if you come to an event, the structure of the event will determine how power flows through the room. So and I talk about this in the book, one thing that happens is you just think about how a room is laid out. Like a dinner table, who's at the head of the table? Right now, typically an event, there's a single speaker in the front, and they have some sort of expected authority over the room, how we're going to do things. And a circle helps sort of at least take away the physical power position. But that was too complicated for today, so we went with this. But we'll keep going, and we'll use, in facilitation, there's two really nice egalitarian ways to let everyone share the space. One is you just go in a circle. You just ask a question, you go in a circle. The other is stack, where you raise your hand, and somebody just keeps track of who's put their hand up and puts you in order, and it's just first come, first serve. Problem with that is sometimes people hog the space anyways because they keep raising their hand. But for today, just because this is, like I said, this is like a test event for me. I'm going to be doing this each month. We're going to start with just using the circle. We'll just keep going in a circle. That's my thought. And let's try that again. Let's just go in a quick circle with a quick question, with a quick answer from everyone, okay? And it's just going to be like, and it could be anything. It could be what's your favorite color, how are you feeling in one word. Anyone have a suggestion for a fun question to pass around to everyone?
A definition of mindful meditation.
Ask everyone to define mindful.
I'm going to asking you.
Oh, yeah. Well, two people did ask about that. How about I briefly talk about that? So, meditation is, there's a lot of different forms of meditation. There's a lot of different definitions of it. But meditation, I believe, is just the practice of stillness. It's just stopping. And it is, the more you practice that, and we can try it right now. Just try being still for a few seconds. Is everyone okay? We'll just try that. Just, you can close your eyes and just try to be still and try to. That's really the only request to make of yourself is you're going to be still. And anything else you can be sort of gentle with. You can let your mind think about things, but just attempt to be still. Okay. So that calmed me down just doing that. But just like raise your hand if you found that at all difficult. Okay. Everyone else who found that was easy? I find it, and maybe it comes differently to different people, but some people find stillness incredibly difficult. And I'm one of the people that find it extremely difficult. It's one of the reasons one of the reasons I'm drawn to meditation and mindfulness is because I'm a naturally incredibly intense person, and that means that can get you going at a very high speed, high energy all the time. And so I was drawn to meditation because it teaches you the exact opposite of that. Not necessarily lowering your intensity, but it just holds you still. So instead of like a boat where there's massive winds just like throwing the sailboat, say, all over the water, it teaches you how to have a still, elegant sail that just harnesses the energy of life, and you're able to sail it or surf it. I like to jump from different metaphor to different metaphors, but so that's meditation. Meditation teaches you stillness. And I basically believe that mindfulness is just awareness. It's just like your mind is full. What's it full of? It's full of awareness. That's what our mind is. It's awareness. It's consciousness. Information and memories and all that, that's just data. But what makes your mind actually be a mind is that you're alive and that you're aware. And so mindfulness is just your awareness. And your awareness has different, there's different things that go on with your awareness. It can be just like I said with the body and your energy. If you're all fidgety and your energy is going all over the place, your mind can go all over the place. And it jumps all around like this, like from topic to topic. So meditation helps you be still. That helps you learn to have your mind still, which helps you learn to have a different relationship with your awareness. So your awareness can be focused, and you can focus it on something, and then you suddenly realize your awareness is like it's like a laser, you know, and the more you can sharpen it, you actually, when you look at something, you can just like really, really dig into it. It's like your awareness burns into it like a laser, revealing new things. And so it gives you a new power. And then people can feel that, because this may sound kind of silly, but like that awareness comes out of your eyes. And so a really, really mindful, still person, you can feel it when they look you in the eye, because they'll really be holding your gaze, and you'll be like, what is happening? They're looking into my soul, you know? And, so that's mindfulness and meditation. And I do talk about in the book how to practice these things and how they end up, they've really interacted with my life and my goals. Okay, so how about, so what should we do now? I feel like we could circle, we could just ask questions, and I could answer like that. I was going to do another circle. I'm open to, is the circle okay? Sure. Circle question? Well, since, and shall I just pick one, or does anyone want to suggest a circle question? Looking at mine. How about just a quick one? Was there a suggestion from our guest?
Anyone else on what is meant by mindfulness?
Shall we do that? We just do a quick circle. What is mindfulness to you? Is that okay? We're just going to go in a circle, and just because let's comment, we'll just start here.
Sure. For me, mindfulness is just an awareness of the experience that I'm having in the moment that I'm in, through meditation or throughout life, just moments throughout the day, awareness, feelings, thoughts, sensations.
Well, it's a learning experience. This is the first time, well, I've been talking a little with Laura. This circle is nice.
All right.
Okay. Oh, it's awareness, paying attention to what's happening internally in response to what's happening externally.
So for me, it would be, mindfulness would be like if I'm doing the dishes, I focus on the dishes, not have my mind wander. Or if I'm weeding, I focus on the weeds and not have my mind wander, because that's the biggest problem that I have. My mind is like broken, it goes all over the place. So it focuses on that moment.
Scotty?
I guess I'll just sit down here. Hey guys. To me, mindfulness is about empathy and about being able to put yourself in other people's place and feel what they might feel or consider what they might consider. And I think that there's so much that can be done beyond giving facts about other sides and other opinions. But if we can find empathy and if other sides can find empathy toward us, I think that's where growth is going to happen on an exponential level.
It's been used already, but mine, I definitely think it's focus on the individual situation at that moment.
It's letting go of the worries about the future and the regrets about the past. Just let go of the future and the past and concentrate on the now, and hopefully on the positive of now, that it's a beautiful world and a beautiful life, and there may be a lot of bad stuff going on, but there's a lot of good too. Just concentrate on that.
I got interested in such things in the early 70s, and as a result of a chain of circumstances became an instructor for the Silva method, which involves mindful meditation from the sound of it, and also looked into transcendental meditation, and more recently soaring crane qigong and some other things. And to me, the how I would define what I think you're referring to is to learn to focus your mind, learn to be here now, as Baba Ram Das used to say. And when you, in the training, we often tell people that if you find that your mind is going off somewhere else, don't get mad about it, don't get defensive about it, don't feel like, oh, I failed. Just sort of, oh, that's interesting, now let's come back to what we're doing. Unless it's something like the house is on fire or something you need to deal with, then that's fine. But otherwise, let's just come back to what we're doing. It's not a bad thing. It's just an interesting phenomenon. Let's just come back to what we're doing, and just keep repeating that. And I think most people find, in my experience, everybody's been able to get into a far better focus than they were able to previously. And as you say with your laser analogy, that does give you powers that you didn't know you had. Also, visualization, and I think when you're meditating, when you're at deep levels of mind, which usually is associated with lower brain frequency and such, that opens powers that are not recognized or understood by most of Western society, and you have the ability to do all sorts of superpowers that you didn't realize you could do. So it's a very valuable skill to nurture, and just keep working at it. Find a meditation technique. I've had people that were into yoga as a meditation technique, or other. There are lots of them. There are hundreds or thousands of them. And so find one that resonates with you, and work with it. I enjoyed the Soba method. I'm not affiliated with it in any way in the last 40 years, but there are lots of good ones out there. And I think that clearly we get what we think about. I think Henry Ford or Edison or somebody said if you think, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. And I think the more energy we put into the negative stuff, the more minutes we think about how terrible, whatever, political, environmental, personal, whatever. If we dwell on the negative stuff, we're just adding energy to that. We're just making that more likely to happen. So I think if we find ourselves doing that, as I said earlier, to say, okay, I don't really want to go that way. What I want to do is stay on the positive, and gently bring yourself back to visualizing the positive solution that you want to see. Like they've said many times recently, become the change you want in the universe.
Well, I think to me, mindfulness has to do with being able to witness your mind, because it seems to jump all over and think all kinds of thoughts. And so if I can be mindful of my mind, then I think that's where I can become present. And as you say, it's not about chastising yourself for not being present, but simply returning to the present moment when you notice that you're not there, which is most of the time for me. Anyway, I think of the analogy of a magnifying glass, where you're taking the light and focusing it down into a point. So that, and what you're focusing on is what you are aware you're focusing on. You know you are focusing on, rather than being unaware, unconscious of what's happening in your mind.
Alex, would you like to say something about mindfulness?
Yeah, I'm definitely not an expert in meditation. I have looked into mindfulness just in terms of, because it's become such a pop term, and when I what I think is a better word for it is the word noticing, and it's kind of like what Helen just said about witnessing. And I just would add to, it's not just watching your mind, but it's watching, it's paying attention to, it's cultivating a moment-to-moment awareness of the contents of your consciousness. And so that, and what I found is that it basically comes down to 4 categories of things that you can be aware of. And it's basically your thoughts, sensory data coming in through your eyes, your ears, what you smell, what you feel, your physical sensations, and your environment. So it's sort of feeling everything, or noticing everything that you can be aware of. The pressure of your back on the back of your chair, the light in the room, the itch in your eye, whatever it is, the emotions, and kind of noticing those different categories. What are the emotions? What are the thoughts? What's sensory data, and what physical sensations? So it's just paying attention to everything that you can pay attention to.
Great. Yaron?
I like that definition. I'll just add that ever since I can remember myself, every single day before school, my father would part from me by saying, "Be wakeful." And he would even have a hand symbol for it, so that if we were far away, he didn't have to yell. He'd just go like this, raising his pinky, and he'd say, "Be wakeful." And what he was, this is literally since pre-K, okay? Every single day. And what he was saying was basically, be a sponge. Take everything in. Don't let things kind of just go by you, but be a sponge to every moment, and sort of heighten your consciousness, both from your external world, what's happening around you, but also internally. I like the 4 categories, the way Alex broke it down. And I realized today that what my father was saying when he was saying be wakeful, and I love that word, wakeful, is actually to be mindful. So I guess I've been practicing it without knowing for a good part of my life.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we can now, because we're being egalitarian, we're going to pick the next topic. So any suggestions? Anyone can, you guys can raise your hand. Oh, is that, you're on, you're raising your hand, do you have a topic?
Yeah. I think it's actually, would be interesting to discuss the virtues, the pros and cons of a purely egalitarian system. I come to it from a perspective of having built companies and being a CEO who was trying to build a very flat hierarchy where I wasn't dictating anything and letting everyone equally sort of contribute towards the building of a company or a product or solving problems. And there are times when that works very effectively, it makes everybody feel great, and there are times when that slows the system down to an absolute halt and gets you gridlock, where you need a leader to step up and say, okay, I've heard everybody's opinion, and now let's go this way or that way. So I'd love to discuss that topic in general, considering the fact that it's the foundation of the discussion here.
Awesome. Okay, so there's one suggestion by Yaron to talk about the pros and cons of the idea of an egalitarian system. So I want to pause and just see if there's any other topics that people would like to suggest before we dive. Just pick one. Any other? It could really be anything.
Okay, so this is more of a comment than a suggestion. So I would say that in terms of egalitarian model, I had lived at a retreat center based on the Findhorn model for a few years, and would agree.
The what model?
Pardon?
The what model?
Findhorn, which was a community, which is and was a community based in Scotland, started in the late 60s. But anyway, I don't need to go into that, but that was what this retreat center was based on in Northern California. And so I would agree that yes, sometimes the egalitarian model takes a lot of time, and I would also say as a leader, I've used it, but also feel like there are times that a different style of decision making is appropriate. So, but all that to just say I'm wondering, given that what we came for, I'm wondering, like, what were your goals as the leader? Because I guess I was interested in the topic of mindfulness and revolutionary mindfulness. So I'm just a little confused, or where we're going, and I am wondering what your goals were, since you said the article that brought some of us in didn't really represent what you were wanting to do. Because, so, and that's with no disrespect to you, your comment, Yaron. I'm just, just kind of wondering what we're doing.
We'll pause. So we'll go ahead and pause, because I know this is there's a good reason you're confused, because there's definitely some new things, different things going on right now. This is like the intersection of a lot of different sort of worlds for me in this event. But my goal was like I sort of read in the book. My intention is to do a meeting like this once a month, and I want to have us practice doing egalitarian meetings that are open to the entire world, and that's why this is a very important piece of it. That this is actually a video conferencing software that 50 people could drop in. So this could, and we're live streaming this on the internet, so people could be watching on Facebook Live, and the video will be out there. So basically, here's one way to explain what I'm trying to do, because it's sort of really connected to meditation and mindfulness. So if you think of meditation and mindfulness as when you are still, you're trying, I think of that sometimes as I'm trying to go into like a sacred space, a sacred moment, and where you can find, where you can rest and really find focus and calmness. And so when you add more people to your presence, that can disrupt you being in that sacred stillness, because other people, it's so powerful having another person in the room with you. I don't know what it is exactly, I don't understand it fully, but having a bunch of people in the room adds a ton more something. Everyone agrees, try to meditate. It's really hard to be in a meditative space with a bunch of people around you, especially if they're not meditating. If they're trying to meditate, that's different, but otherwise, it's like people pull us out of this space. And another thing that pulls us out of that space is the way people behave in a room. And that's power. It's because my behavior over here won't affect Scotty and disrupt him unless I'm using my powers in some way that affect him. And one way to do that is talking. Just talking is taking space. It's like my voice fills this room, fills our ears, and it's like imposing itself on you every moment that I'm talking. And some people, it really is imposing when they're talking. It's really... So what I'm trying to do is help us sort of practice creating space together that can stay sacred, that can stay beautiful and peaceful. And then if we can create it in one room and we can open that room to the entire world, we can just make that space bigger and bigger. Every month, we'll add more people, and that's, I've built this platform to allow like 1 million people could join this conversation. The platform allows everyone in the platform to do what we learned in the Occupy movement, sparkle fingers. Everyone ever seen this in a meeting, in a room of people, and everyone likes something and people go like this? Anyone seen this before? It's from then it came out of actually anarchist groups, because they really care about everyone in the room being equal. And so they say, if you like what's being said by the speaker, you can go like this. It just means, instead of applauding, because applause interrupts the speaker. It sends power. But this is just a gentle way to say, yeah, I like what's going on, or I don't like what's being said, or I'm on the fence. And so the platform I built allows 1 million people to do that. And you just see the colors on the platform of green. If everyone is going, yay, I like what's going on, or I don't like what's going on. And that gives it sort of spreads the communication power out to everyone participating. And there's other little techniques like that I'm doing. And every month, as I get better at facilitating this, and people that are interested help make this happen, then hopefully we'll have more mindful meetings, and it can sort of spread like a virus and take over the world. And then we'll have an alternative power system to say what we want our governments to do. That's sort of the crazy, crazy ambitious sort of like
So
goal.
as I read you, you're in the experimental stages and searching for something that you don't know exactly what's going to happen, but you're hoping that you can get rid of the current technique of top-down hierarchical power and allow people to be more free to express themselves than they have been in the past.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. And I think it's not to replace hierarchy, it's not like we'll replace our government, but how about we have just way more power and influence in the masses of people and what we actually think and feel. Because really, if you think about power, like in the US, say, over one government, if all the people just realized we have total control over this country, we just need everyone in the country to agree on the words for a change to the Constitution, and we can all vote and change the Constitution. If we just learn to do this, to have meetings, we learn how to have everyone in the country feel like there's a safe space I can go in, I can speak, I can be heard, I won't be attacked, I won't be threatened, I'll be able to communicate and learn, and we'll be able to come up with agreements for what we want the laws to be, what we want our leaders to do. The only reason we don't do that is because we allow ourselves to be divided by silly arguments over silly things, rather than focus on basic problems like money in politics. I bet everyone in the country would agree we should not have money controlling our governments. Right, left, doesn't matter. And we could change that if we just all agreed on like a single constitutional amendment. But why don't we do that? Because we allow mass media to control the conversation. And the mass media is controlled by money. So we need to create a new type of mass media. A mass media that is completely crowdsourced and crowd-controlled. And I guess that's another way to look at this. This is sort of like a seed of a new type of media, which would be you would enter the space and you could talk, or you could just listen. So,
Jose Silva that developed the technique that I used to teach, did a lot of research. He was an electronics technician originally, and so he was a fairly nerdy kind of guy, and he proved to his satisfaction that when you get a group of people, this is addressing your thing of it changes the dynamics when there are other people in the room. When you get a group of people that are all working towards the same goal, that are all visualizing the same solution, that it increases asymptotically or exponentially. If you have 3 people, you don't just have 3 times as much energy, you've got something far more than that. Mm-hmm. And when transcendental meditation was in the early 70s, when I knew several people that were excited about that, they felt when they got 1 million people as TM graduates that combined meditative force would prevent us from having wars. Well, it didn't quite work out that way. But I still believe that the phenomena has been accurately proven that when you get a lot of people that are all on a synchronized project, that you get a lot more power. It changes from a candle to a flashlight to a searchlight as you add more people to the common goal. And is it Ron in Tel Aviv?
You're on.
Yeah. To address Ron's original question, personally, I believe that they both have advantages. I'm a very egalitarian kind of person. I pay just as much attention to the street sweeper as I do to the bank president, or try to the best of my ability. And I think that's how I was raised as an American. I was told by our propaganda machine that we were a democratic country where everybody's vote counted and we were all equal from a vote standpoint. But without putting on my tinfoil hat, I think that in the last 2 years we've seen that isn't actually what's happening, that votes are not counted correctly, that the system is designed so that some people have far more power than other people, vastly more power. And I think that's unhealthy for the planet. So all of these things, I think, can be combined. They're all sort of disparate, meditation, politics, but they really all can be used. They're all part of how the universe works, and they all can be used to save us.
All right. So I don't know if anyone here is a group facilitator. Well, I know Helen's done it, but if anyone was actually watching sort of what happened in the room right there, it's I had originally asked what topics should we talk about, and we started to sort of make a list of topics, and then we just sort of went into some topics, which I just point that out because it's one of the things as a facilitator, just sort of watch. That's power, It's the ability to change the topic in the room, and it just sort of organically happened, and it was great, wonderful sort of topics to go into. But I want to step back and ask, I'm just going to give us an opportunity. What do we want to talk about next? What do we want to go into? We want to continue with, Yaron had suggested go into the pros and cons of trying to do things egalitarian, and we've touched on that. We did the tangent onto what my goals were in this event. We can literally go into any direction. We could talk more about activism. I could read to you another passage from my book if we wanted to do that.
I would like to say a little bit more about pros and cons, just real quick. I think there are so many pros to it, and you can think about collective consciousness or conscious, and how we can all work together and kind of make things happen in a way that we're all linked in. If we let that link happen, then there's so much strength in that, and it's really undeniable. I think though the con is that if we don't have an agenda of some sort or another, not an agenda as in a political agenda or anything like that, but an idea or an outline of a direction, then everyone comes from these different groups that all have great intentions, and so they're like, okay, yeah, but I want to say what I have to say with my group, and we have our own points that we want to stress. And so what happens is then it gets muddled, and it gets to the point where there's infighting, and you lose the value of that connection because everyone's trying to get their thing to the top. And if there's some way to recognize that and have everyone check their own agendas at the door and work toward a goal together, I think that would be very useful.
Thank you. I guess when I said to you, what were your goals, maybe that's more what I meant, in terms of an agenda, because, hearing now, I'm realizing I came maybe more for the content of what I thought, and I'm realizing you're much more talking about process. Mm-hmm. And although, I agree, process is important in how content is discussed and delivered, but I realize that when I said I was confused, that's my confusion. I thought the content was the issue, and I'm realizing you're wanting to talk about process. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe that's what, and so maybe what you're saying kind of ties what I'm trying to think about together. Is like, what are we doing? And I'm also aware that perhaps this is what your agenda or goals is just to allow for a free flowing of when there isn't really a leader, although, again, I think of you as the leader, even if it's a leaderless group, because you called it together. So.
Yes, that is very, very well described. Yeah, and this is literally one of the things I've learned in my meditation, mindfulness practice, is trying to be more comfortable in the unknown, uncertain, unplanned, trying not to control everything that's happening, and trying not to be fixated on like a specific goal. I feel like even today. And that is another thing that's sort of, for me, that's like a lifelong sort of challenge, is I like to be in control. I like to know what I'm doing. I like to have a plan, especially if I'm going to be in front of people and speaking. But when you're trying to do incredibly crazy, ambitious things, sometimes you just got to like pick a couple things you can control. And so, I literally feel this anxiety of worry of like disappointing anyone who has shown up here, participate in any way. There's like everyone, people expecting things, and it's like, am I going to deliver that thing? And hoping everyone will be like compassionate that this guy's apparently trying to do something, it's different, probably not like any other book reading you've attended, right?
Hey Matt?
Yeah.
If I could suggest, it seems that the component here of the way this type of discussion was promoted is the key to setting the expectation, right? So I don't know if it was in this article, but I think you can, very fairly say that you want, and you need to find the right words to describe it, but say that you want to try to create this beautiful space, this place where people can just free form talk to each other in this still, safe way. And that is the agenda, to simply get together and free flow, communicate with each other in this way that you're trying to experiment with, rather than be specific on the type of topic or that would bring people for specific content, like I forgot the name of the lady who was saying. I think the experiment itself is interesting enough. I don't think people need to check their agendas at the door. We all might have topics that we want to discuss, and this is a forum where we can bring it up and have other human beings react to it, and that's quite a beautiful thing. That in its own right is a reason to come to this sort of space.
Awesome. Thanks.
So better advertising next time.
Yeah. So, where should we go from here? Any suggestion on topic? I mean, you could ask me a question and I will answer it, or we could do another. Oh, we have two, yes.
Well, how would you word that new advertisement? That would be, how would you actually put that out to the community? This is a great platform, but how would you word that out there next time?
Yeah. You're actually asking me.
Yeah, what when you went to the leader, or any other way that you advertised, I got it through the leader, but however you go out there, what words would you use?
Why don't we help and write those words together? Why don't we write those words, all of us together?
Like right now?
Right now.
We could do that. Let me see what Helen was going to say before we dive into a specific task like that.
It seems to me that you asked a question of what topic do we want to discuss?
Mm-hmm.
And Iran said, let's talk about the pros and cons of egalitarianism. And then we went different places with that. Do we want to choose that topic, or do we want to choose another topic? I noticed that sitting in rows, as you pointed out, and seeing the backs of people's heads doesn't allow me to see what people are thinking. And having you sit above us is also a power differential. You know all this stuff already, but I think if we were to go back to that original question of, I mean, Iran had, if I'm saying that right.
Yaron,
sorry. Suggested a topic. Do we want to talk about that, or do we want to talk about something else?
Okay.
I find this fascinating experiment, and I'm glad there's only 10 people here. You asked us originally to go around and everybody say something, introduce themselves. If you started out with 1 million, it's a physical impossibility.
Yeah.
So even ramping it up just a little bit from this small group of 10 seems to be a mind-boggling difficulty. It's an interesting topic, and I'd love to see where it can go, but that's going to be your biggest problem, is scaling it up and trying. We've got enough topics here. 2 or 3 is more than we can really handle. If we really open it up to activism versus mindfulness versus whatever, it just becomes unmanageable.
So we'll call that the topic of scaling up. How do you scale up something like this? And I have a lot of I can talk about that because I have a lot of ideas about that. Okay, so we had a number of different things that just came up. We could we could figure out how I'm going to advertise this event. How can I describe it so people know what they're getting into a little bit more? Helen she was just sort of checking in on that. We've been sort of jumping topic to topic and basically asking us, do we want to be focused on a single topic? And then the topic of scaling. I'll just touch on like those topics, and you can raise your hand if you have something you want to say about them. Does that sound okay to everyone? Any objection to that? And Scotty, if one of them like waves their hand.
I got it.
So the how would you word an ad for this? I'm going to suggest we not go into that. Trust me, I did not say I was doing a book reading. I did describe it differently to Charlie at the leader, and he just put in what he wanted to put in the leader, which is, that's a interesting moment, when you say, hey, this is what I'm doing, and they just say something completely differently. You're like, that was so helpful. Now,
Actually, I didn't think it was a book reading, if you want the truth.
Oh.
I really didn't. I didn't even see that. I just thought I was going to come and get your viewpoint to help me with, mindfulness and mindfulness. That's really what I thought.
Great. Well, I'm glad you're here. And then I'll just respond briefly to the scaling. This sort of, I think it's come up with, how do we do this on a big scale? I think the way you go is you start to make this an open space. If anyone knows, an open space is a specific type of group event, and you can have any number of people come to like 100, 200 people come to an open space, and it's facilitated. And so when you come, the first thing you ask is, anyone that wants to facilitate talking about a specific topic, you list your topic out. And so it's like, so you list out the topics, and then one way you do it, so imagine you have like 200 people here, you have people are listing topics on the wall. They're writing, I want to talk about activism or mindfulness or amending the Constitution or starting a public kitchen in town or whatever your, starting a new political party, whatever your topic is, and then everyone just goes over and they write their name under the topic they're interested in. And then at a specific time, like the facilitators ring a bell or something, and each of these topics is given a space. Like under that tree, or in that room. And so everyone breaks for an hour, and you go and you talk, go to the group you want to talk to, and you hope within each of those groups they're facilitated in a decent way, but that's, so it's basically a way where you take the energy of any size group, you ask them, what do you want to talk about? That gives you a bunch of like pots for gathering that energy. Then you say to everyone, jump into the pot you want to jump into. And they go into it, and they churn away, and they come out, and they might have each group take some notes, and so they can come and they can post their notes from each group by their thing. And so if you went to one thing and not another, you come out and you can read about what happened in the other groups, and if they have a follow-up meeting or something, they might have it listed there, and you could go to that. And so that's kind of the way I see these. As they get bigger, that's exactly right. You can't circle anymore. What you do is you can do limited things as the whole group is together with stack. Some people get to speak to the whole group. But then you can break up into small groups in a very egalitarian way, and it's very important in those small groups. You're never locked in the group. They say in an open space meeting, one of their big things is you're not locked in the room. You can come in, you can leave, you can like hang at the door. You don't have to sit and join any group. It's really about creating safety for everyone there. So I don't like feeling trapped. And I hope if anyone just wants to leave this, please feel free.
But do you feel that you have enough pods? Can you name the pods that you see that come out from this group?
Are you saying pods or what?
Well, I mean, how would you identify all these different things that have been said? Subject?
So you said if somebody makes a suggestion, then they write it down, and then they take their group somewhere to discuss these topics.
Right.
Yeah. If we were doing an open space, I would have facilitated it differently. So it would have been, what is your topic? And I would have written it up here. And so you that's part of how the facilitation helps the group keep their focus.
Yeah.
And to stay together is the facilitator takes what's said and makes it visual. So it's shared information. We have this group on this topic, this group, and you can see how many people have signed up, and then you break up into the room.
I guess that's what I'm asking. What are the groups?
Yeah, we're not. I don't think we're going to try to do that today. So we're not going to break up. I mean, we could if we wanted to. I wasn't going to be that ambitious for today's. I thought we would just stay in here and see what happens. That's okay.
Sure.
I'm kind of interested in the opposite. I'm interested in activism, and I look online, and there's thousands of groups. There's one who's saving the bees, and another one is working with plastic bottle things, and another one's working with Planned Parenthood, and another one's working with defeating Trump, and there's thousands of them. And when I look at all these, and I want to be involved in all of them, and I haven't got the energy for all of them, and I'm thinking that what we are opposed to, the people that are currently in power, seem to have a picture of where they're going and a drive in that direction. And part of what they're doing is dividing the rest of us. And they've got us so divvied up with so many different projects that the power is diluted. And I wish there was some way that we could have the Women's March 3 million people, triple it, get it up to 10 million people, and every time the Congress comes up with a new bill, those 10 million people can react in unison to that one bill. Or somehow that we could get away from the division that the people in power are successfully diluting our power with. And I haven't got a clue how you go about doing it. But I'm just so frustrated with bees versus water versus Trump versus Planned Parenthood.
That was my point before as well, and that was what I was trying to say. I wasn't saying don't have your own agenda. Everyone's going to have their own agenda. Every group's going to have their own agenda. What I was talking about is if there's some semblance of structure to what you're talking about in your group, then if there's a way to check the very minor things, if you stay focused on that semblance of structure of what goes into that conversation, rather than, and not this topic and not that topic, and muddling it down. That was my point. Not to say that we shouldn't have agendas. Everyone should. Everyone does. If you've ever talked to a person in the media, Matt, you would realize that writer has his own agenda and probably has a story written before he even interviews you, or she. And I know that because I was a journalist, so they just fill in the blanks, that's a quote, and it's not always fair. Getting to the main point, though, is that if there were a way with the Hive to have some sort of okay, this is the structure of what we're talking about here, so that groups weren't trying to bring in their own different message, so that it's good to have diversity of message, but if we're talking about one thing and it all gets chickened down to bees and Trump and all that stuff, and Trump with bees in his mouth, as Homer might say, then you might lose focus like I just did.
All right, we got two hands up. So first.
Okay, so my question is, going back to your book, Revolutionary Mindfulness, I'm not too sure, after hearing all of this, what your object was. I mean, is it, being that you're an activist, in your book, which I don't know what's in it yet, because I haven't read it, were you thinking more of getting one subject, one topic, and then focusing on that as a mindfulness meditation to bring the power, like you were saying, the power to, the peacefulness, the power to, like say, finances in the government? I guess I kind of got lost a little bit there. How would you do that? I mean, is it because we would all be thinking of basically the same thing and putting it out there into the universe, or what? Does that make sense?
Yes, and is it okay if I just try to reply to it while it's still fresh in my mind, because there was a lot you just said. I think mindfulness I've started to realize that my mind is like a group of people. It's like there's 10 people, like that movie Inside Out, if you've seen that, where there's like 5 beings inside your mind. I really feel like that is a good metaphor for the way the mind works. There's part of you that might feel like that wants to do something, and there's another part of me saying, don't do it that way, or you're doing it wrong, or do something else. And so mindfulness, in a way, is learning how to facilitate your own brain, which I've realized I try to be egalitarian in my mind, and I try to just listen to each part of myself's needs. And then if every part of myself feels heard, then we can agree on basic directions in life. Like, we want happiness. Everyone in my brain is agreeing. I'm going for a happy life. And so we can have general agreement on what things I need to do to achieve that. In a way, I feel like it's the exact same exercise with people. Like, if we start with a single country, you just need everyone to have their needs heard. They need to feel they can say what they need to say. They will be heard. They will be respected. Everyone will be equally valued. Just like, I don't see any other solution. There's no other solution that's reasonable, I think, than equality. It has to be the basic principle. Otherwise, you're saying, I want some people to have more, and then you're just creating an opportunity for conflict. So So yeah, if we just did that, if we just all were able to just communicate enough together to express our needs and pick off the easy, low-hanging fruit of basic changes we could make in the world. There are some very easy, low-hanging fruit that are not divisive, like getting money out of politics, or even trying to end hunger or homelessness. I mean, there's some really easy things if we just took the power to do that. And in the democracies of the world, we do have the power to do that. In legitimate democracies, I mentioned this in the book. I went to Hong Kong during their umbrella revolution, where they're fighting to try to get an actual democracy. They don't have real democracy. Their leaders are chosen by Beijing, by China, and then they like to vote on them. China says you can vote between these three people to be your leader. They're like, that's not quite good enough, and they're trying to get they want to be able to nominate their own potential president. And so they blocked, they took over Hong Kong, the protesters. They blocked major highways, major intersections for like 3 months. And it was led by students, and during the first 3 weeks, the police in Hong Kong were escalating tactics. They were doing pepper spray, and the students and everyone came out in raincoats and umbrellas and in goggles, and they were just stood there in the pepper spray while they were being flooded by it. So the police, first time I think in the history of Hong Kong, they shot tear gas at the students, and students spread and came back. And the next day they came back in mass numbers. And once that happened, that's when I was like, I'm going there. I bought a ticket, told my wife. There are students getting pepper sprayed in Hong Kong, essentially by China. Essentially by China. There hasn't been a democracy protest in Asia like this since Tiananmen Square. So my wife, I'm going to go there. I don't know what I can do, but I thought if nothing else, I could be a witness. And so I went to Costco and bought a GoPro camera, and so that I was like, I'm going to be decked out in cameras, because if I get arrested by the Chinese police or something, I'm going to be at least recording it. And I was seriously wondering if China was going to send in tanks, because that's what they did in Tiananmen Square. That's how they cleared the protest. So I went there, and I was there for a week, and I met people on the streets there, and it's interesting. It sort of connects back to I was just following how they were trying to transform their country, and even there you saw leaders had to sort of come up out of the movement. They had like 5 leaders that were doing a lot of speaking, and they were trying to figure out how to give more of the students, more people voices, and so they were sort of struggling. So they had thousands of people, and they struggled with that, and so I feel like we now have the technology to solve that problem. You don't have to, when you get 1,000 people interested in something, it doesn't have to come out to one leader. We can use technology like this. If we just get better at it, and we'll work out the kinks. We'll bring speakers that have 2 speakers that work, not just one, which is just sort of funny to me. And we'll have better microphones, but we can solve this problem and create spaces that are far less easy for individuals to rise up and be the leaders. Because if you have that opportunity, people that love being leaders will become the leaders, and they tend to be, people that like being leaders tend to have all sorts of character flaws, because they like bossing people around. So we need to create an environment where people that don't like being leaders, don't even like speaking in front of groups, feel safe to do that, and just feel like I can go in there and I can talk and I'll be heard, and it's not dominated by some arrogant person or some. Okay, so now I'm a little bit lost where we were. Okay.
I just want to say, so far I think you're being pretty successful, because I'm one of those people who tends to not speak up. And I have been able to speak up here, so.
Wonderful. Let me see, what should we talk about? I don't know, are we just keep the stack open? And please raise your hand, Alex and Ron, if you would like to jump in. Yes.
Robin talked about in Massachusetts when she was growing up that there was a, wasn't facilitator, what was the word? Consensus?
Yeah.
That
Hello out there, this is Matt Reddy, host of the Mindful Activist podcast and founder of the Global Consensus Project, developer of the Hive1.net platform, and thank you for joining us today. Let's get this all, let's see how we're doing here with the Facebook Live's got us all. Okay, and you got us. So we're broadcasting today live over Facebook. We're on YouNow, and we also have a Zoom video conference room set up. So if any of you are daring and you join in, you will appear magically on the screen back here, and you can participate in full audio video with today's very exciting episode. It's very exciting for two reasons. It's the first time I had a return guest, because technically Anami...
Have I been on this show
Well,
before?
technically I did interview Anami. I haven't released that interview yet, but so you're the first returning guest. And it's also the first time I've had actually two live guests. So today with me, Anami, local activist, and Mallory, also a local activist, returning from Standing Rock, where a lot of stuff is happening right now. So we're just going to jump right into it. Is there anything more you'd like to say to just introduce who you are before we get into the story?
For me, I think that's all that's important right now.
Okay. Mallory?
Yeah, I mean, local activist and photographer as well, and that was a big reason as to why, I mean, not a big reason, but it helped going there, knowing that I could photograph a lot of the stuff that was happening, because there's just so much to be seen, and people relate a lot with pictures, so it was kind of a push towards us going.
Well, to begin with, when did you go?
We went last week and got back Thursday night.
Yes.
Thursday
So
night.
we were only there for a couple days because of work schedules. We really only had this tiny little bit of time to go, and so it's kind of like, you know, should you go if you can only go for a little while? And the fact is, you know, they need bodies, so yes, even if you can only go for a little bit of time, you should. Because that helps, but also we wanted to, a lot of people are wanting to go. A lot of people, and you're kind of going, it's really hard to get information from there, and accurate information, and how to arrive, and how do you know what's going on, and which roads to take in, and which ones you can't take in, and
which camp do you go?
What camp do you go to? Because they say, oh, you can camp at any of the camps, but, and you can, but it's a very different thing going on at each camp, and not very, very different thing, I would say, at each of the camps. And so what we wanted to do was kind of do some fact finding for people who wanted to go and find out, you know, like, here's how you can make your journey easier. And when we got there, because Mallory wanted to do her photos, she needed a media pass, and we ended up both getting media passes. And we had gone there, we wanted to bring supplies, and we wanted to help do water runs. We had these plans of how we were going to help. And we were really, I think, quickly humbled and reminded that the best way to help is to listen to the people that you're trying to help. And don't think, well, I'm sure they need this, so I'm going to go do this. It's better to, I don't know how to finish that thought, but it's better to take a little bit more time to assess what is needed instead of just jumping in and helping, because sometimes things that you're doing to help actually become a hindrance if it's not something that's needed. And so since we had these media passes, we were able to talk to a lot of coordinators and organizers and elders and find out, what do they want you guys all to know? If you're coming, if you're not able to come, like, how can you help? What is actually needed, and what's not needed, what's actually become somewhat of a problem. So that's the information we brought back to share with you guys today and every other chance we get.
Great. Yeah, that before we get into that, it very much reminds me of when I went to Hong Kong during the umbrella revolution there, and went there with all these ideas of what I was going to do, and you get there and you're like, okay, first I need to figure out actually what's happening here, what people are really doing, and but it also taught me, go there. It's just forget, don't try to think about what you're going to do. Go there, bring your body there, and opportunities will arise.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't have to justify your presence by bringing, I need to bring this truckload of food or else I'm, not really helping when I get there. I won't be welcomed or whatever. And it's with things like that, with things like this, being there is really important, especially when it's, when you're standing up for something, trying to say something, the sheer numbers of people saying it. So just the most important thing right now is being bodies there, actual physical people there is really the biggest gift that they need right now.
We were told that so many different times by elders, by media, anybody there that was, that was their land, that was where they were from. It was a constant, just come. Bodies is the biggest thing. And you could tell, especially when it came down to that time when you had to go to the front line and stand there, and you felt the energy of that sheer amount of people coming together as one, and you're singing and you're dancing and you're hugging and laughing and knowing, even though there's this potential threat coming your way where you might get arrested, where you might get pepper sprayed, where violence might be enacted on your body, there's still this, there's something about that mass amount of people coming together for one cause peacefully together. It's a beautiful thing, and so the more that they have, the more sheer amount of people, the more that will grow, and the more I feel that it helps. It literally helps so much. And we saw the numbers grow just within the small amount of time we were there. We saw the numbers growing and growing. And even on the last day we were there, we're like, there was way more people here than the first day, and it was powerful.
Yeah. I can't imagine.
I think as people are finding out what's going on and how atrociously people are being treated by the authorities, it makes people want to go and want to stand up. And it was just this waves of people coming, and that's great. Because support people are needed as well. People to work in the kitchens and people to help organize all the donations that are coming in. All this stuff is so. If you have kids, or if you're an elder and you don't, a lot of elders choose to be on the front line, right in the very front, because if they're going to pepper spray somebody, they're hopefully that brings some shame to people that they would pepper spray an elder. It doesn't seem to, but you would think that it should. And so they need those support people, but yeah, the people who can actually go up to the front line and be there. And in the videos, it looks really scary, and in places it is when stuff is going on. But you kind of can choose the level of danger that you feel like you can put yourself in. So if you feel like you need to be safe, or you feel like you need to bring your kids, or you feel like there's something about your body that makes it hard for you to be right there on the front line, if you have something that kind of holds you back from full mobility or something, you can kind of stay at a support camp and do support the people that are there at the front line. If you go to the front line, you can be right there at, mostly it's elders, there's a lot of women protectors. I mean, if you really want to be right there on the front, I don't think anybody would deny you, but there's several lines of people. They try and have, if you're going to be on the front line, you have to have nonviolent action training.
Are they providing that, or?
There's if you have nonviolent training, that's great. And because we were media, I think we got kind of skipped around that a little bit. But I believe they have it at the camps that I think everybody's supposed to take their nonviolent training just to make sure.
There's a meeting that they were having for that because they have multiple different kind of meetings for a lot of different things, and that was one of them. Actually, was the nonviolent. They had somebody there, 2 people. I think there was a group possibly that we met in one of our circles, and they came to help teach the nonviolence actions.
Yeah, so the education is definitely available. And so yeah, there's that distancing from the front. You know, you can be right there where you're probably going to get pepper sprayed if something happens. You're probably going to get arrested. People have been being beaten by the authorities, people who are completely nonviolent. They have done nothing wrong. They have no weapons, and they're being hands up, and they're being beaten by the police. And so you can choose to be there if that's where you need to be. You can be a little bit further back where you might get some overdraft of pepper spray. They might come arrest you. There's lesser chance. And then there's places you can be there where you're right there at the front line. You're a body. You're showing that support. You're the numbers, which help. The more people, the safer people are. But you have a much less chance of being arrested. And the thing is, the numbers help so much. When we were there, the cops every day, they were threatening this raid, the raid that ended up happening Thursday. And they were sitting there watching. And so from this side, it's kind of hard to get a lot of information. Is an interesting thing when you're in there. Yeah, they kept threatening it. And what we know now is that they didn't have the numbers to be able to do the raid. So sheer numbers. They collected cops from all over the place in other states, and then they had enough. And so Thursday, we left Wednesday evening because of work commitments and some other things that we had to come back for. But if we would have known that it was going to be the next day and not like the next week, we would have stayed, I think. But then we wouldn't be on this side with information for you guys because everything went on lockdown, and we still might not be able to be here.
They blocked anybody on all roads coming in.
No in or out. And the cops blocked people. Yes. When the protectors are doing roadblocks, it's only to keep people safe. It's only because police are coming in with AK-47s, they're coming in with tear gas, they're coming in with pepper spray, they're coming in to tear down the stand that's being made on this native land. And so those roadblocks are only there to protect people from getting hurt. They're not, if you're trying to drive down 1806 and there is a roadblock from the protectors and you say, I'm trying to drive down, and they make sure that you don't have weapons and that you're not trying to hurt them, they open it up and let you through. They're not actually shutting down roadways. They're just trying to keep people safe from a really aggressive force coming in.
Yeah.
So tell me, if people are thinking, I want to go there, you said that there's a number of different camps.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk about that, or how do you want to approach that?
Was 3 camps. There's 2 now.
Because one was raided.
So originally there was 2 camps originally as well. And then around last week, they decided to move up right where the pipeline is supposed to be laid. And they called that winter camp. And it was kind of to make a stand on that land, on that piece of property, to say, no, you cannot. This is our property. You cannot come and destroy our sacred land and put a pipeline in. And then they had, down the road, they had an actual blockade where it was for security wise, like she was saying. That's the one on Thursday that got raided, where they tore the teepees down. People had yurts, little tiny yurts, trailers, tents, kitchens. They made their kitchens, and there's a lot of food supply. It was a camp. It was a home. It's a literal home for these people, especially with winter coming there, and it's cold, and they're making something that you could live during the winter in the snow, and so that's what they came and raided and took apart and tore apart. So now it's just the other 2 camps that are left, which I think a lot of people are at the main camp now.
I understood it a little differently, and of course everything, you know, as you're experiencing it, everybody kind of sees things differently. I kind of, in my mind, when we arrived, there were 4 camps. There's the original camp, the Sacred Stone Camp, which is on private property on the reservation, is the furthest from the front line. And it's, I think that's the one a lot of people seem to go to because it's the oldest one. And it has a very, when we got there, we were kind of like, this is not what we were expecting. It had a very, the intensity definitely increases the closer the camps are to the front line. And this one, it seemed almost very relaxed. And people seemed almost like people had like hula hoops and they had like, it was just kind of like, I don't know, people seem to be, I mean, it's great to be there in solidarity, and it's a prayer camp, so I'm sure people are putting a lot of good energy towards it, and they're kind of taking most of the donations in and trying to organize them, which has become really difficult because there's kind of a lot of the wrong things. And so that's kind of what's going on there, is that support camp. There's events, and they talk about people perform and speak. And coming up closer, there's Rosebud Camp. This was that little one, and that one, I think by now she's right that this one might be disbanded. They were
supposed to be. They were condensing because of the winter, is what he was. One of the elders, I guess you call him, Johnny. He was asking for people to come closer in to the main camp because it snows. It's going to snow.
Yeah, and because information changes so fast. Like, I mean, within 10 minutes, within a half an hour, and we've been gone for a couple days now. Everything could be different, and we've been trying to keep up on what's going on, but it's really hard to keep up to date information. But the goal, I think, was to condense camps for winter, and the original plan was winter camp was going to be the main camp because it is right there on the front line. It's right there where the pipeline is supposed to go in, is right there, and so that was the one they were trying to condense people to. And then Oceti-Sakowin is the big camp, or North Camp. There's a couple different names for it, and that's the really big one that you often see in pictures. Sacred Stone Camp, there's no pictures of that one. They asked that to be that way, so you mostly see the larger camp, and I don't think I have seen pictures of the Rosebud Camp, which is kind of in between. But they were going to break it down to, I think, 2 camps, and they hadn't decided. The elders were still talking in council about whether that would be Sacred Stone Camp and Winter Camp, or Oceti-Sakowin Camp and Winter Camp. But now that Winter Camp is disbanded, we'll get to that part, is no longer there. We don't have a way to know what was decided camp-wise, but just if you want to go there and mostly be a support person, you want to be really safe, you want to head right for probably Sacred Stone Camp, which is the furthest south. If you want to, if you are in Oceti-Sakowin and there is a frontline action, somebody will be on that microphone saying, you need to get to the front line right now, you need to be there now. I heard them say, you guys up there on the hill, now. There's more of a, I mean, and if you have your kids, you know, if there's a reason why you can't go to the front line, nobody's going to try and make you feel bad for that, but there's definitely, it's more intense and there's more pressure to get there. Like, you know, the relatives are in danger now. Like, the soldiers are coming in now. You have to get up there and support it. And that's where it's really needed, is people who can actually go up and stand and help provide that safety in numbers.
So, well, I mean, for one, just to know that there are these set camps. Mm-hmm. I mean, that like gives, like, I'm thinking about, you know, possibly going out there. So there are camps. There are. Where was I going with that? But it's definitely camping, right? I mean, you need to be prepared for like winter camping.
It's like Alaska.
Yeah, like Alaska. So serious tents, or bring your RV. I don't know, your little camper.
An RV if you can. Summer tents are no good. If you've got a 4-season tent, an all-weather tent, that'll work. They're trying to get these Arctic tents that smaller tents can go inside. They're like 50 yards by 80 yards. They can put the kitchens in them. They can heat them with wood stoves, and you can put your then you could have a summer tent. But they don't have these Arctic tents yet. So if you only have a summer tent, that's not going to do it. The winds go up to 70 miles an hour. The temperatures will drop to 20 below. There's going to be lots of snow. And so what they're asking, so for those of you that want to go, When you get there, you can camp anywhere, pretty much. If you see a spot and there's not like it's obviously not a thoroughfare for people to drive, you can camp there. But they're asking that you find people to bond in with. Don't be like, well, I kind of like my space, so I'm going to camp over here. The guy said repeatedly, one of the elders at the meeting was like, if you go off by yourself, you will die. Once it starts, it's funny the way I'm saying it, I guess, but it's not. If you go off and nobody knows you're over there and it snows and you can't get back to the camp, you can freeze to death. I mean, it's, I'm not trying to discourage anyone from going. I just want people to go prepared for it to be really cold, prepared for there to be snow, and really with that knowledge that you have to be part of the community. You can't go there and be separate. And you'll be welcome. Everyone there is welcomed like their family. The sixth generation grandson of Sitting Bull sat there in the meeting and was saying, everyone here is Native. Everyone here is part of this family. And so when you go there, you'll be welcomed. You'll be welcomed to eat food. You're welcome to sit and pray at the sacred fire. You're welcome to go and be part of it. They're not going to make you feel like you want to be exclusionary. So really you want to find, there's the Two-Spirit camp for LGBT people. If you want a place to dive in, and you don't have to be LGBT to camp there, but if you're just like, these are people who will welcome, I'll camp there, I don't know how you would pick, but find a fire, and be like, I would like to camp here with you guys. Can I camp here with you guys? And make friends with those people. Find some place to fit in. Don't go and be a satellite.
Okay, so I have to delve in a little tangent just from what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a specific part of a camp that was more LGBT friendly than another, not
campfire.
A campfire, like within a camp, you mean?
Yeah. So the camp is how big would you say that is?
It's big.
Maybe
you don't really realize how big it is until you're coming
100
down.
yards, 300 yards across, and it's kind of circular. Right. Within that, everybody's got their RVs. There's teepees. There's meeting tents. There's all these different areas within that big camp. And they're, like I said, they're trying to get everybody really condensed in so that it's for safety, it's for warmth, it's so that they know how many people are there. That's another thing is there's no way right now because everyone's so spread out, you can't track who's there. So if somebody goes missing and nobody knows to check in with them, how do you know they're missing? And people are getting taken by unmarked people in military garb in little buggy things. And for a while when we were there, there was an incident where 2 people were taken by somebody in military garb on a little buggy, and only one of them was showing up as arrested. And for most of the days we were there, people were panicking. They're like, we know there was this other person. In fact, all the way up until the day we left, a lot of people hadn't found out what had happened. And so
they were kidnapped.
They thought they were kidnapped, that one was arrested and one was who knows where. And so having people know who you are and that you plan to be back is really important. That in that situation, it was 3 people were approached, 2 people were taken, 12 people came up, and I got this from somebody who was there, the third person who was saying this. 12 people came up, and they took that second person and they pushed them off and ended up only arresting the one. So he wasn't actually kidnapped. That's another really important part. Information is crazy to keep track of out there, I guess. Rumors, so many rumors. During this raid, there was people on horseback. There was a young boy who, some people say he was 15, some people say he was 18. They were shooting live rounds at the horse riders. They hit some of the horses. This young man's horse had to be put down because he was shot with an automatic weapon. The horse, not the person. And that story changed to an 11-year-old boy on horseback and his horse were shot. And then eventually it changed and I heard something about an 11-year-old girl being shot. And killed. Now, in truth, no human died. So the horse died and the fact that, So here they've killed the horse, and so either that's a living being or that's property. If you want to go there, either way, it's not appropriate. But beyond that, if you shoot the horse out from under somebody and they fall and break their neck, these police and these soldiers, these National Guard are attempting murder, and not even just a little bit, but a lot. They're saying things. There was this woman who. They said had a .38 and was firing at cops. I don't know if you guys have kept up on the
something about that.
It is. You can see it in the videos. It's a prayer stick with a dream catcher on top that they had carried this whole way, and she was down in the front with this prayer stick. It's an elder. She's this small woman armed only with prayer and a prayer stick. And there's pictures of them ripping the prayer stick out of her hand and hitting her in the stomach with a metal baton. And the fact that they would do this to people and then have the unconscionable action to go on to their site and say that she was shooting at them with a .38. We saw no weapons when we were there, not a single one. Nope. They've said they had to pepper spray people because they were shooting bows and arrows. There's no bows, there's no arrows. And super yeah, I guess it's racist because they're saying that because they're native peoples, so they're shooting at us with bows and arrows.
Stereotyping.
It's a stereotyping.
Yeah.
There are no weapons in the camps. They even ask people not to bring large knives that are for camping purposes because they might be perceived to be weapons. And nobody preaches anything other than nonviolence. And the only thing even stemming towards that sort of attitude from the natives that we heard were from warriors at the front lines who were saying that if they had to, they would lay down in front of those tanks and die if they had to. They're not talking about going out and hurting the officers or hurting the soldiers. They're talking about putting their lives on the line to stop them. And that's the closest thing to violence that we heard out of any of these people.
And in fact, when in discussion of the police, there's always constant reminder of these are people. They are the same as us. Remember that. They have families. They have lives. They're doing their job. They don't know any better. And sympathize with them, and try to connect with them on a human level, rather than, calling them evil or saying anything that's negative in any way towards them. They try to be as loving and as peaceful as they possibly can. And it's amazing. Even knowing that what they do to them. There was a teenage girl that we got to talk to and see in the north, the winter camp. She had her arm broken by one of the police in a riot, and on Thursday in a raid, they saw her and saw that she had a cast on from it being broken, and they re-broke it. And even after that, a teenage girl, even after that, there's still compassion, and there's still just love, and trying to understand them as people as well. And it's profound. It's like it really hits you deep, is seeing the fact that they could just let it all go.
Yeah. And that girl went back to the front line, and then after it was rebroken, she went back to the front line again. There's no giving up. There's no okay, never mind, let him put in the pipeline. There's no and you guys probably noticed that I don't, it's like I don't want to correct, but language is important and easy to confuse. And so the police keep saying, well, they were rioting. And so to be really clear, that's, the police are raiding. They're saying they're raiding because of riots. There are no riots. The natives have not, Native people and protectors, all the protectors, sorry, that came out odd, have not, there's no Molotov cocktails. That's one that we've heard. There's so much misinformation being put out there. There's so many rumors from inside. We were there when Obama had a meeting with, it was a chairman from one of the tribes, and I can't remember which. Was it Archibald? Was it the one from the Sioux Nation?
It might have been. It was on Wednesday, I believe.
It was on Wednesday. And so we're there, and an elder came out and said, he said they have to stop. He said they have to stop the pipeline. They can't do it anymore. Yay! And everybody cheered, and everybody got really happy, but they also were like, Are we sure? Are we sure? And it wasn't until, I think until we got back that we found out he did in fact ask them again to stop. He did not give them a directive that they have to stop. He asked them to stop. They've been asked to stop now by the President of the United States, the Department of Justice, the United Nations, to my understanding, which I'm still trying to get some more verification on that, but the United Nations was on the phone when we were in the media tent.
Yeah.
Wow.
All across the world, people are trying to get this corporation to stop, and they were refusing to stop. So Thursday, what happened during this raid was they came in with hundreds of officers, with army tanks, with AK-47s, with silencers on them. They're attacking people, they're beating people, they're spraying with mace, they used concussion grenades. They came in, they took they stomped on all of the sacred items that were at the front line as they came in. As we were saying, they ripped the prayer staff out of the elders' hands. They went to the sweat lodge, which is the church. This is the church. And they pulled it open. They pulled out elders who were in prayer while they were in prayer, and tore it down. And then they destroyed the sacred fire. And this is like somebody just, for those of you out there that go to a church of any kind, imagine armed soldiers coming into your church while you're praying and ripping you out and beating you and macing you and then arresting you for rioting. Sorry. It's just unconscionable what is happening to people who are just trying to. It's a pipeline that's being protested all the way from Canada all the way down to where it goes. It's going to carry 550,000 gallons or barrels. Sorry, 550. That's much more than gallons. 550,000 barrels of oil a day from the Balkan oil fields, which already does not need to have any more oil taken out of it. I mean, we're unstabilizing the earth as it is by pulling all of this stuff out.
They're rushing to build something that already potentially could be have leaks and poison the water, and the fact that they're working at night, building it in a hurry, even more so.
Yeah, and it's not even the potential for it. There was 272 leaks on these pipelines by this company in that state alone. 272 in that state alone already, leaks from their pipeline. And now, they're angry. They're having to work through people that are opposing them, and they're not doing a good job. They're not exactly doing a better job because of all this. They're probably doing a worse job because of this.
And then you could hear them at night when, you're trying to sleep in the camp, and you could literally hear the tractors. And it sounds like a construction site. It is a construction. You hear it, and you hear it constantly throughout the night and into the early morning. I don't know how many people they have working there and the shifts that go, but those people are probably tired and they're not doing a good job. On top of that, in
dark and at night, and they came in and they took that winter camp that was up there maybe. I would say 100 yards from the place where they try and stop people from coming in, and then down was the winter camp, which is I think most people know about the company bringing the dogs and the day that happened. So across the street from where the camp was is sacred ground. There's artifacts there. There's burial grounds there. This is sacred native land with every reason not to dig it up. And they were coming down, and the protectors were there stopping them, and that's when they brought the dogs and attacked people, and this pushed people back, and that's when they just, even though there was a stop work order, even though there was an injunction, a federal injunction, they continued construction all the way up to the road. So I should have brought pictures of this. So yeah, you can see. The dirt all pushed up to that fence, then there's 1806, and on the other side was the camp. So where they want to come right through next and dig, that's where the camp was. And so they came in with this military action, and I've never, it's like they're waging war. They're waging war on people to put this pipeline in. And they came in and they arrested everyone, they beat people, they sprayed people, they pushed them all back, and they kept being like, we'd like you to go to the south camp, you'll be safe if you go south to the other camp, and they sound like they're being all like making it possible to avoid arrest, which first of all then you'd have to give up to for that. But also they're like, if you go to your car and drive away, we won't stop you. And then people were saying, but they were stopping us. They're saying that out loud.
Pepper sprayed.
And then they were getting pepper sprayed and their keys were being taken, even though they were actively trying to leave and actively trying to follow the orders of the police, those particular people, they were still stopped from doing so, even though the police were saying they would be safe and would be allowed to go. They were not. And so that everybody got pushed back, and they were bringing their trucks down the road, and their trucks had some wiring difficulties, and they were stuck there in the road, which stopped them from coming further down. And so that was in between the Oceti-Sakowin camp and that winter camp place. So once they cleared all that, they cleared all the teepees and the yurts and the trailers and the tents and all of the stuff that people had built there to stop this from happening. And on the live feed, it's night and you can hear the construction working. So I was trying to find out before I came here, like, what does that look like now? What does that place at winter camp look like now? Is it all dug up? Is it like like across the street where like you can't go backwards on this stuff? You can't undig up a grave, you know? So, and I wasn't able to find out for you guys. I'm sorry. I wanted to find out if anybody knows, but they're they're coming at people with live rounds of ammunition. So people are kind of stuck lower. And really, the only thing at this point that can that's not true. I have no idea. I don't know what one thing I think that could probably stop this more than other things is if 10,000 people show up, you know, and walk up there and get in the way again. There's the pipeline is laid as of Wednesday, 4:30 Wednesday, 1.88 miles from, was it from the river or from the camp?
Ooh,
I want to say it was from the river, so where they're trying to go under. They don't have an Army Corps of Engineer permit to go under the river at this time. This company, well, we can go into that next, I guess, how exactly illegal the company is.
I was going to say that you should probably clarify, because there's a lot of questions out there about whether or not who's in the right and who's in the wrong.
Whose land it is.
Whose land it actually is, and she actually has that information. We got that actually from legal.
So this is verified through several sources. We got this information from media. We got this information from elders. We got this information from the legal contingent there. They're called Red. I have it written down somewhere. Red Rose Legal, Red Cedar Legal, something. Anyway, Red Wing Legal. It's in my notes somewhere. But anyway, the legal that's handling everybody's arrest and also, you know, how to fight this in other ways. So in 1851, I've seen on the news they say 1861, but that's a different tribes treaty that's similar but different. So in 1851, the Fort Laramie Treaty gave a certain set of land as the reservation to the Sioux Nation. Let me show you where this is. I have pulled this up for you guys. We'll see.
Right,
I might have to get cool.
I'll become
Do you want me to bring it to the...
Let's see, yeah. Well, at least for Facebook Live, we'll give them...
Yeah, or I mean, I can hold it up there. I have a couple other maps clear for us who don't know North Dakota really well. So this is the Black Hills, which we've had this sort of problem before with the Black Hills gold in the 80s. But this was what is set aside by the treaty. It goes all the way up here to the Heart River. And so I've got another map with the modern towns on it, so you can see where that is. I'll make a picture for you guys here. One of these pictures. Guys, I've got, there it is. So this one.
Oh, here, I'll fix that.
Yeah, this one's kind of small, sorry. But you can see where Bismarck is up here. So the Heart River is up here by Bismarck. So, and we're talking about this area way down here. So they're not trying to say that they want to reclaim all the land up to Bismarck, but they're saying that as far as putting pipelines in the ground and destroying the water supply, that is treated land. That is their land.
Huh. And is that alternate pipeline route? Is that like what the tribe would prefer them to
No,
do?
that's the other option that they didn't do. It was possible. This pipeline is horrible wherever it goes.
Yeah.
But they could have put a place where it would go under less water, and it would go around the reservation. And they chose not to do that route for whatever reason. I don't
Money
know.
probably, but it's interesting that they had an option. I mean, if we can pause just to give you a little like a reflection from what I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm.
It's I mean, if you look at this, like it's a conflict of two forces. You know, the forces that want to do the pipeline and the forces that don't. And you hope if you want the protectors, the people that want to protect the water, to win, you hope at some point you can start a negotiation, an actual negotiation that both sides will, a peace, a new treaty.
Well, ideally, but in order for that to happen, the energy partners, the corporation, would have to act civilized. Somebody from that company would have to act like a human being, and none of them are. So
well, or they'd have to be forced to by a third party of force, like the U.S. government could potentially.
Well, the U.S. government has. The Department of Justice has told them to stop. They don't have an Army Corps of Engineer permit for this area. Even if they did have legal right to come through here, they haven't got the permit.
But if the U.S. government actually wanted them to stop, I mean, it's like then you send in the National Guard to enforce the law. That's what we did during the Civil Rights Movement when we wanted to integrate the schools. The government has to use its might to enforce. To enforce a treaty or peace,
right? But
it's
that's
not happening.
No, it is. The National Guard is there. They're just fighting on the wrong side.
Yes, I hear you.
They're there. They're just not. It totally blows my mind that they're because it gets more complex than that, because it's not even just in 1851 this land was treated, because in 1873 a lot of this land the line was moved back. The line was moved all the way back to where Ochete-Sakowin camp is, and that's why they're claiming that they have this land. So what happened was in 1873, as this happened with a lot of treaties, they're like, you can have this much land. Oh no, wait, actually we want you to have less than that. We're going to take more, and they just took it.
I think that's how most treaties have gone forever.
Yes.
The U.S.
In fact, I believe all of them have been backed on. So at that time, this land was tracted as farmland, and it's been through a series of ownerships. So most recently, there was a farmer that owned this land, and he sold the land to the Dakota Access Pipeline to go through. And this is why people say, well, it's private property that belongs to the DAPL. So here's the other side of that, is that in North Dakota, according to, hold on, I'll give you the statute. It's going to load up. I'll have to find it for you. There's a statute in the North Dakota law that states that corporations, I have so many resources to show you guys that I can't find this. Here it is. Okay, in chapter 10-06.1 of the North Dakota state law, it states that corporations cannot own and cannot lease, it was a little longer than I thought, so I won't read it to you, but you can look it up. It's they cannot own or lease land. So at the point that they tried to make this sale, that contract was null and void because it is illegal. You can't make you can't make a contract that is not legal and have it be legally binding. So at that point, the land reverted back to ownership of that farmer who had sold it to the DAPL, because the sale cannot legally go through. Now that farmer has since decided that the Sioux Nation is in the right, that it is their land, and he would like to
give the land back.
Yeah, I mean, it's not his to give back, but he agrees that it is theirs, and that, for lack of a better word, he has given the land back. He also turned back over 30 buffalo as well, because those buffalo live on the land and they belong.
Which are they the same buffalo that we saw?
Some of the buffalo that we saw. So
Yeah.
and some of you know that in the middle of the raid that the police were doing, hundreds of buffalo, Tatanka, came down the hill.